Health and Safety Committee meeting to discuss the recent immigration enforcement stops and clarify roles and responsibilities across the federal, state, and local authorities. We do have a public comment period. Without objection, I'm going to make our public comment period 30 minutes, which is an extension from our 8 minutes. So we'll go ahead, and I understand that Chair Brenda Gadd has been checking IDs pursuant to our rules, so I appreciate her doing that. And so I will invite the first person to the podium, and please forgive me for mispronouncing her name. Looks like Zach Knight Vargas.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Saknita Vargas, speaking on behalf of the Remix, a grassroots organization who has been nonstop protecting community families. I'm here to speak against the violent abuse of power we are witnessing in our city, carried out under the false label of public safety. What we are seeing is not about public safety. This is another attack on working class people, people who built this state and hold up this economy. And now they are being terrorized in our own neighborhoods. The Tennessee Highway Patrol has confirmed that this was part of a so-called safety operation conducted in partnership with the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. But let's be clear, this is state-sanctioned racial profiling. This was a coordinated operation that intentionally targeted South Nashville, an area with a large Hispanic immigrant population, under vague claims of traffic concerns. This is not public safety. This is the expansion of policing and surveillance in our communities. U.S. citizens are being stopped and interrogated. This is one of many reasons why community and grassroots organizations have been advocating for months to stop the implementation of fuses and LPRs, this mass surveillance system. And now everyone can see that we were right from the beginning. Yes. People are disappearing. We still have families who have not heard from the loved ones who have been abducted over the weekend. These stops are happening in broad daylight in the densely populated areas of South Nashville. With MNPD's knowledge, the goal here is not safety, it is fear. Businesses in the area are suffering, trust in government agencies is declining, and all of us, regardless of our immigration status, should be alarmed. What is happening here is a stripping away of our civil rights under the cover of public safety and law enforcement. We demand answers. We demand accountability. We need our neighbors back. And we demand that the city say no to racial profiling and no to separating families. What will the council and the mayor commit to? What will the council and the mayor commit to concrete policies and procedures to keep immigrant families safe?
Thank you, ma'am. Let's hear from Mike Lacey.
I didn't write anything. I feel like I write you guys enough. I just want to say that this is no longer theoretical and that what we're seeing is not just the implementation of something that we politically might not agree with. We've heard what is happening when people are taken and they are intentionally not being provided access to means of communication, to speak with attorneys, to discuss their status and how they want to proceed. So this is not something where the federal government gives a heads up, MNPD knows about it for a few days and just waits for that to sort itself out, and that's okay. Because we have very blatantly unconstitutional activity that is being condoned. There's going to be a lot of what did Metro know and when did they know it? And I think that's really important. But if what you know, and let's just go with what you know now, is that very explicit, blatant, unconstitutional activity is happening either at those stops or at those detention centers, then knowing about that, not publicizing it, is condoning it, is collaborating, and is participating in unconstitutional activity. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ashley Warbington.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Warbington. I live in in Sean Parker's district, and I'm a volunteer with the Remix. Early Sunday morning, just after 1 a.m., our hotline rang. Someone had spotted ICE agents on Harding Place. Within 30 minutes, I was there. I saw a man being detained. Agents in dark vests marked with ERO all around him. As I left, I saw it again. More blue lights, more people pulled over. Tennessee Highway Patrol in front, unmarked cars behind them. ICE agents detained people. I saw it with my own eyes. People being targeted not for breaking the law, but simply for existing while being Latino. This is happening in our city right now, and it's terrifying. We've since learned that MNPD knew these raids were happening as early as May 1st. Did they tell the mayor? Did anyone try to stop it? We're being told that THP didn't need permission because they were using state routes, but I saw them on side streets, back roads where families live, where children sleep. This isn't just about traffic stops, it's about fear. It's about children waking up without their parents. It's about mothers calling us in the morning crying, asking if it's safe to drive their kids to school. I received that phone call yesterday morning from a mom at my son's school. She asked, can I drive down Dickerson Road? I could not give her a clear answer because I don't know. Nowhere is safe. I did tell her that at the time we hadn't received any reports about Dickerson Road, but later that day, the next morning, we had a stop on Dickerson Road, which now I can no longer tell her there's been no stops on Dickerson Road. So I'm asking you, with everything I have, what are you going to do to protect us? Because volunteers driving around South Nashville in the dark, hoping to give people a heads up, that can't be our only safety net. Will the mayor step in if ICE shows up at a school? Will this council say with clarity and courage that Nashville will not cooperate with these raids, that our city will not become a hunting ground for federal agents?
Let's go to Hannah Fletcher Page,
You have the power right now. Do something. Please protect our families.
My name is Hannah Fletcher Page, and I'm a mother, and I'm an educator, and I live in South Nashville. These sweeps have left my friends and neighbors terrified. I also have received concerns. Is it safe for me to bring my kids to school? At the school I work at, I work with a lot of immigrant families, and I cannot separate them from their parents. How could we rip these families apart? These are children, some of them who are born here, but it shouldn't matter where you were born. You should have the right to live in safety without having to be concerned that you have to lock yourself in your house just so that your family can stay together. Just so that if the Department of Homeland Security is trying to fight terrorism by this, they should stop terrorizing our communities. This is unconstitutional. This is unconscionable. This is a violation of justice and human decency, and it's un-American. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Miriam A.
Hi, I'm Miriam Abel-Fazli. I'm native-born Nashvilleian. I'm here to say that, I also got the call from a long-time family friend who said in Spanish, do you have a number for a lawyer? We are not leaving the house. My kid's not leaving the house. My husband's not leaving the house. If I do leave the house, I need somebody's number. And I guess for me, similar to Ashley, I don't believe that that our only answer are the people that are the handful of people that are spending nights not sleeping, just trying to be the support to these people. I understand that many people are getting numb to this growing authoritarianism. I understand that there is a sort of acceptance to the moment that we live in, but the truth is we have to get creative and innovative and fight harder like in ways that are more than just rhetoric. So what I'm looking for are lawsuits, and I'm looking at the unconstitutionality of not having due process. I'm looking for joining other cities and other communities that are taking those steps. I'm looking for concrete fight. I don't want for you to tell me how you feel. I'm sorry. I just want to see what we can do within the realms of what we still have as a country and as a democracy. The other thing I want to say is that these are not traffic stops. Stop calling them that. They are checkpoints, y'all. They're checkpoints, and they're not happening in Forest Hills. They're not happening in Brentwood. They're not happening in Green Hills. They're happening on specific streets. Those are checkpoints. Call it what it is. Find the solution. I understand your hands are tied. But by the way, they will not deport the numbers they need to meet their base's demands. These are demonstrations. These are for image purposes. Our city cannot be the source of their demonstrations.
Let's hear from our next speaker is Trina Hewell. Trina Hewell.
Hi, my name is Trina Hewell. I live in District 6. Clay Cap is my representative. On Monday, the mayor said, "Nashville is strongest when we look out for one another. What's clear today is that people who do not share our values of safety and community have the authority to cause deep community harm. Their approach is not our understanding of what a Nashville for all of us looks like, and we're grateful to our community partners who make all of our residents feel welcome." What struck me is how similar the mayor's view of ICE is to far too many Nashvillians' view of Metro Nashville Police. Sunday and Monday provided ample proof that very few people trust that MNPD was not involved, and trust in the mayor is beginning to erode. Last year, the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed Donald Trump for president. The national headquarters of the FOP is in Nashville. The Nashville chapter of the FOP has nearly 2,000 members. The Metro Nashville Police Department is budgeted for 1,658 officers. When I see a large group of police, I see a Trump rally in uniform. One could infer that what happened this weekend was exactly what Nashville's police union endorsed and voted for. In 2018, 134,000 of us, including myself, voted for community oversight. In 2023, 72,000 of us voted for Freddie O'Connell. A grand jury of our peers has made clear that they also do not trust MNPD and recommended a special prosecutor to investigate the whistleblower complaint. I'd rather have a mayor that's willing to uphold the Constitution by defying this administration than one that defends the very people that endorsed this.
Lee Myers. Lee Myers. Next speaker is Lee Myers.
Hello, my name is Lee Myers. I live in South Nashville, and I'm a graduate of Belmont University College of Law. The raids happened in proximity to my neighborhood. I emailed Councilperson Evans, but I'm here to express my concerns. I'm extremely concerned about the shifting accounts from Metro government and ICE. In a memo emailed to the Tennessee Lookout, ICE has claimed to coordinate with, and I quote, local law enforcement. Meanwhile, Mayor O'Connell and Legal Director Deetsz have gave inconsistent testimony about the nature of Metro's involvement. Eyewitness accounts identify Metro police vehicles at the DH office before the events that transpired Sunday afternoon. Additionally, just today, Director Deetsz released a timeline that indicated that MNPD knew THP and ICE operations would happen 2 days prior on May 1st. These accounts are, to put it mildly, incredibly frustrating. The people and immigrant community of South Nashville deserve a straight answer about how much Metro knew and what actions did it take over the past few days. More distressing is the pretextual basis and proffered narratives of THP stops. THP claims to have stopped 150 people for violating traffic laws on Nolensville Pike. Anyone who lives near that corridor knows that that number is preposterous given the hours they conducted that operation. We are not that gullible. We know that at least one, and very likely more, of the people that were detained and shipped to Louisiana have every right to be in this country. And they have pending immigration court dates. I will not mince words here. What THP and ICE did is a direct violation of the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and 14th Amendments of our national Constitution. These amendments guarantee every single soul in this country the right to due process, an attorney in any potential criminal proceedings, and freedom from unlawful searches and seizures. Finally, I want to conclude that regardless of one's immigration status and the circumstances that brought them into this country, you deserve to be here. I sign off asking Metro to do everything conceivable to get the names of those detained and to bring them home. Here, Nashville is their home.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Michelle Flynn. Michelle Flynn. Michelle Flynn.
Okay, I'm gonna cry because this is a time for every one of us to be in tears. This is a city where people, indigenous people, were marched out of this city, out of this community, somewhere else. Their people did not know, their neighbors did not know where they're going, right? African-American people in this community who were connected and built this community were taken away. They were enslaved. They were hung. This is our legacy in this city. For every cisgendered white person that's in the Metro Council, for our mayor. This is the time for us to have courage. I do not want my grandchildren reading about the efforts that were made. This is not efforts that were made. This is you all stopping those cars. Councilperson Sepulveda, I watched you this morning on live feed as you try to follow more detainment, more scooping up of people. We have to put our bodies in the way. I don't give an F. I'm an old lady in my 70s. You can lock me up, but I do not want my neighbors taken away and to continue a legacy in this city that we say it is not us. And I will tell you, Jewish people who are LGBTQI+, people know what it's like in their bones to be persecuted against. But it is us as white cisgendered people that need to absolutely put our bodies right now in the way. It is not a question of your political party. It's a question of our people. This is our city. These are our people. We must do everything we can. So go and start driving your cars around all night and watching what's going on. And I will say about MNPD, you do not deserve any of our trust.
Ms. Flynn.
Absolutely no trust.
Ms.
And
Flynn.
Mayor, stand with your city, stand with your people, and fight. Where the F is the fight in you? Get the fight in you and protect us.
Ezra Howard.
That's hard to follow up. I'm sorry. My name is Ezra Howard. I live in District 22. I come from, as an ESL teacher. I was an ESL district administrator. And one of the things, and I also am a educational researcher in these areas. And one of the things when I was a district administrator is you do not let people walk away without something to take home and work on. So Metro needs to review policy and practice with regards to entering by state and federal actors at locations DHS once considered sensitive locations, where raids and pickups would not occur due to their disruptive nature to the community. That designation has been rescinded by the presidential administration and DHS in February. These locations include schools, that is pre-K
through post-secondary, churches, hospitals, sites for funerals, weddings, and other religious ceremonies, sites of public events, parades, marches, things that we celebrate around the city. Metro and its bodies need to review policy and practice ensuring both the safety and privacy of its residents. Now, coming from education, on the matter of schools, I've reached out to members of the school board, and I have been informed that operational policy and practice that they've passed going for district-run schools does not apply to charter schools. This is a vulnerability. So because they have the independence for operations in this, this is furthermore, if many, if not most charter schools do not provide transportation to students, parents often pick them up. This is another vulnerability. If council members have charter schools in their districts, they should reach out to them, to the leadership, to ensure that safety and students of families. Lastly, as it is budget season, Metro needs to increase dedicated funding for legal aid as it is provided in the past with partners such as Turk and Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors, as they did in 2022, and they need to go beyond that. Thank you.
Mr. Howard. Deluvio Palazzo. Deluvio.
I said it last night, I'll say it again. This was disgusting. All law enforcement in this colony are modern byproducts of genocide and enslavement. Let us remember that. And on that note, I yield my time.
Thank you. Patrick Riley.
Hi, I'm Patrick Riley. I live in District 18. I'm here with some of my colleagues from Vanderbilt Graduate Workers United. I'm a historian of policing. I just want to say that the history of policing is filled with dubious invocations of traffic safety. And I want to note briefly that, as our neighbors in South Nashville are being terrorized, this also has a ripple effect to every, international worker on Vanderbilt's campus. There are colleagues of ours across the campus who, used to be vibrant participants and contributors to our campus life, to improving the quality of the research and education environment at Vanderbilt, and they've been terrified by the authoritarian immigration enforcement that we've seen around the country. And I just want to say, if you're not an enemy of this kind of authoritarianism, you're abetting it. Everyone here is an enemy of what this administration is doing to our communities. And so if you're not ready to be an enemy, you should get prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Luis Mata. Luis Mata.
Good afternoon. My name is Luis Mata. I'm the Government Relations Manager with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. I work in District 28, and thank you all for calling this meeting and the opportunity to speak. Since the early hours of May 4th, when advocates and organizers in Nashville confirmed a coordinated overnight immigration enforcement operation between the Tennessee Highway Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, we have received 761 phone calls, with 75% of the calls being about this enforcement activity. And our organizers have been speaking with the affected families nonstop to assist in locating loved ones, connecting them to the resources to meet their needs, and understanding the injustices that their loved ones faced. This atrocity is the direct result of years of hateful anti-immigrant federal policies, the recent laws passed by our state legislature to create an Office of Immigration Enforcement to facilitate collaboration between ICE and law enforcement agencies, as well as surveillance infrastructure meant to criminalize and separate our neighbors. These policies and actions are unconscionable acts of cruelty and abuse of power from ICE collaborating with state law enforcement that will have a devastating impact on families throughout Nashville and beyond. We know from experience that actions of large-scale, indiscriminate immigration enforcement have ripple effects throughout families and communities as breadwinners lose jobs, children lose parents, and businesses lose owners. We join the demand for transparency from all levels of law enforcement on the nature and scope of this operation as we fight to protect the rights of all who live and work in our community, regardless of their immigration status. And we urge our local elected officials to push our state elected officials to stop these cruel attacks on our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mata. Our next speaker is Suzanne Frensley. Suzanne Frensley.
Councilmember Evans, there was somebody higher up on the list, Tristan Call, who I believe's name was missed.
Oh, I apologize. Let me double. Yes, thank you for bringing that to my attention. If we'll go back up and collect Tristan Call, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. My name is Dr. Tristan Call. I'm a proud volunteer of the Remix. I've spent 3 of the last 4 nights on the ground monitoring ICE collaboration with police on Nashville streets and interviewing witnesses. I interviewed 2 people detained by ICE early Sunday morning who said they were originally pulled over by MNPD, apparently for speeding, which they weren't, and then promptly handed over to ICE, who detained them. They fear for their safety, and we are continuing to investigate, but have not been able to independently verify how those stops happened. They clearly identified the people who stopped them as wearing MNPD-style uniforms and driving a white car with blue Metro lettering. If it wasn't Metro, it may be worth investigating whether any ICE vehicles attempted to mimic MNPD markings. I also interviewed an eyewitness who saw a big group car meeting of law enforcement patrols in a parking lot on Nolensville Road around 1 a.m. Sunday morning. The witness saw unmarked ICE vehicles, Tennessee Highway Patrol SUVs, and 2 marked MNPD patrol cars. His description is that the cars circled up, officers talked to each other, and that during the meeting, at least some officers started harassing immigrant-looking pedestrians who were on foot, asking if they had papers. I bring this to the committee not because we think MNPD is to blame for the outrageous racial profiling and cruel hunting of our neighbors each night since Saturday, but because anyone who has been around police knows officers talk to each other, both at the street level and at the office level. Metro has been collaborating with ICE for decades, primarily through DCSO, which has handed thousands of people over to ICE over the last few years and housed detainees for ICE through a money-making contract until we pressured the sheriff to drop that contract a few years ago. The paths for collaboration with ICE's cruel ethnic cleansing agenda have already been paved. Now we are regretting this, but building the necessary firewalls to prevent the use of Metro resources is methodical and requires constant renewal and vigilance. It is crucial for MNPD to do a full, transparent investigation, asking every officer on the street or dispatch or administration since Saturday night what contact, if any, they have had with ICE or THP during those operations, and report transparently to the public what occurred. Thank you to the council members who were there with us on Sunday. Mayor Freddie O'Connell, I wish you had responded to our request to be there and present with us on Sunday.
Thank you, Dr. Call. Suzanne Frensley. Suzanne Frensley.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Frensley. I was born in Nashville. I'm a current resident. I've also been teaching in Metro Nashville Public Schools since 1993. When I was 4 years old, my family moved to New York and I returned to Nashville to attend college. When I returned, I met strangers who spoke to me and were genuinely interested in me, and I thought, this has got to be fake. I soon realized that was not the case, because what I discovered was that we were a community of neighbors. And in a way, Nashvillians are an extended family, but that was all shattered on Sunday. My students, including those born in the United States, are terrified. They are terrified to go to school. Those who do go to school are shaking, literally, physically quaking in their seats. They're worried about themselves, they're worried about their friends, they're worried about their family members, they're worried about their teachers. We already feel unsafe at school. We've had 2 school shootings in the last 3 years. Our governor has done away with the summer food funding that we've relied on for many years. The tax administration tax cuts are reducing SNAP from $2 per person per meal to 67 cents per person per meal. We've just finished high stakes testing. We are moving into exams. This is a very stressful time, and our students are feeling less safe than ever. As a historian, I can tell you that what happened Sunday is a form of political violence. It is in no way something that will help us create a better future. Our kids are the future of our great country. People who are unwilling to prioritize the safety of our children should not be in leadership positions. We need you to do everything you can to prioritize the safety of our children, and that includes prioritizing the safety of the adults who care for them.
Thank you. Our last speaker, and I apologize, I can't read the handwriting. It looks like it could be Sabrina or Sabina. Sabina? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sabina Mohideen. I'm the Executive Director of the American Muslim Advisory Council. I live in District 25, but a lot of the Muslim community lives in South Nashville. This is our home. This is where we live, where we work, where we go shopping, where we worship. South Nashville, along Nolensville Road, Murfreesboro Pike. You have the largest Kurdish community. You have one of the largest Coptic Egyptian communities. We're very diverse. And I hear all the time, Nashville celebrating our diversity. What does it mean to celebrate our diversity if you cannot keep us safe? People are worried about getting out of the house and traveling streets that is home. You know what it means to feel like it's home? When you're driving in a place that's familiar, you go around, you're like, this is my shop. I know this street. When you go to someplace unfamiliar, you feel a little uneasy, but home is where you feel at ease, where you feel safe. We don't feel safe. Nobody. And don't think it's just about people who might not have the proper documentation. It is all of our community that is not feeling safe, whether you're a citizen or you're not. At this moment, I myself was born and raised in Nashville. I don't feel so confident that I am not going to be stopped over for some flimsy traffic violation reason. Let that sink in. How many of you have to think about that? Think about it. What is our community doing? How are we holding MNPD accountable? How are we holding our government accountable? We need to be safe. We need to see you value our safety.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who came to speak. I truly appreciate you taking the time to do that. And so with that, we're going to proceed with our agenda. And the first person that we're going to hear from is Director Wally Deetsz from Metro Legal. And so let me make sure I have the microphones turned on for you to start. Okay. You have to hit the button down there. You know how to do that.
Is this on? Yes, okay. The events over the weekend were heartbreaking and objectionable on so many levels. Fundamental decency was violated. People are terrified, and that was part of the point.
Everyone, please let him continue. Thank you. Yes. I don't think so. Yeah, there's not. There isn't. Director, please go ahead.
So many of you have contacted me. Many members of this council have contacted me. And starting on Sunday, I started trying to find out what happened in our community, what Metro's role was, if anything, and the facts that I have found I have put into a statement, which I have sent to council members and to members of the media. I have come to these conclusions. The events overnight, Saturday night, early Sunday morning, caught Metro by surprise.
Everyone, please.
Look, I listened to each one of you. I was very glad to give you my attention and listen to each one of you. I would ask that you give me the same courtesy. There's not a single person who expected that to happen who works for Metro. The Tennessee Highway Patrol confirmed that the Metro Nashville Police Department was not involved in their coordinated activities with Tennessee Highway Patrol. I have found no evidence at all that contradicts that. In fact, I believe, as we sit here today, I can say with a lot of confidence that Metro Nashville Police Department was not involved in those activities. There were videos. Some of you sent me a video on Monday morning. It circulated widely, and it took a few hours to track it down, but that was completely debunked. And if you have evidence, if you can get pictures or videos that contradict what I'm saying, I encourage you to send them to me.
Y'all get the evidence. You're the director of law. We shouldn't have to have the burden.
Ms. Chang, please.
I have done what I can do to find out what happened. I have put out a statement. I have published 2 phone calls that are relevant to this discussion. I am being 100% transparent. And so I am here to say that this is the sequence of events that I have discovered. On Thursday, May 1st, a gentleman identifying himself as Inspector Jackson Sanders from the Federal Protective Service of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security called our Emergency Communications Center. Federal Protective Service is the security function that protects federal facilities. They protect the federal courthouse. They protect every federal facility. That is their job. The caller requested extra police patrol at Nashville's ICE facility on Sunday on Brick Church Park. He told the dispatcher that there would be operations throughout the weekend, and there was a concern of backlash by families coming to the ICE facility on Sunday. The dispatcher, you're going to listen to this call in just a few minutes, so you can hear it with your own ears. The dispatcher tried very carefully to write down the information. You can draw your own conclusions, but the person at the communications department took the information and put it into a queue. When there are calls for extra patrols, and these calls come in, there's an avalanche of these calls. Director Martini can speak to that himself. When these calls come in, they are put into a queue. And so the dispatcher followed policy and protocol and put it into the queue so it would pop up on Sunday morning for a dispatcher to make the call to MNPD on Sunday morning. And then MNPD would receive the request for extra patrol. The call was scheduled to go out at 10 a.m. on Sunday. Then, as we know, overnight, Saturday night and Sunday morning, THP and ICE conducted their joint operation. There's now actually confusing information about how many stops. The THP said 150 stops on Sunday. There was a statement that THP released in response to some of our Davidson County delegation that referenced 350 stops. I will be following up with them to try to find out exactly how many stops there were in Nashville overnight, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. So then next, on Sunday morning, the request popped up on the dispatcher screen. And at 10:04, the request, 10:04 a.m. on Sunday, May 4th, the request was sent about the extra patrol at 501 Brick Church Park Drive. And it was sent to the North Precinct Sergeant Megan Lamon and North Precinct Officer Corey Bean at 10:04 a.m. on Sunday. That was the first notice Metro Nashville Police had of any official communication about the activities that had already transpired. And the text reads, request extra patrol for every hour on Sunday. Concerned there will be retaliate, their word, from family members on Sunday due to detaining subjects. So then, Assistant Chief Gilder will speak to this. The sergeant and the officer thought that call was unusual, and so they drove to the ICE field office at 501 Brick Church Pike and went in and asked what was going on. At the same time that this is happening, people are beginning to get calls and text messages about the ICE activity from overnight. It was a very confusing situation late morning on Sunday and through part of the day, just trying to figure out exactly what had happened. After inquiring what the call was about, the sergeant and officer left the facility. The officer answered unrelated calls Sunday morning before returning to the ICE field office to do an extra patrol. He drove around to the backside of the property, and then he saw that the driveway was blocked by people who had gathered. The officer made his way through carefully, and the MNPD personnel who had responded left the ICE facility. To ensure public safety, the officers stayed in the area, but they were replaced and relieved by crews from the Tennessee Highway Patrol. So after reviewing the calls, talking with the departments, and reviewing publicity from THP and ICE, there's simply no evidence that I can find to suggest that MNPD was involved in any way in this joint operation. MNPD routinely receives requests for extra patrols for a variety of reasons and responds to the extent resources are available. What is extremely alarming is that I still cannot find out who was arrested and who was detained. I've written Tennessee Highway Patrol. I've asked them. I got some generic information today. It was a copy of the message that THP sent to the Democratic legislative delegation. It had some generic information, but it was somewhat contradictory and very confusing. U.S. Department of Homeland Security claims that they made arrests in conjunction with criminal activity. Well, if that's so, then they should tell us exactly who and exactly what the charges are, because they are refusing to do that. And until we see that evidence, frankly, I'm going to have a difficult time believing them. So I sent my letter to the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Earlier today, I sent a letter to the field office on Brick Church Park Drive, to the New Orleans Regional ICE office, and to ICE leadership in Washington, D.C., explaining what we've been told by the Highway Patrol about the traffic stops and the fact that THP said they made, quote, a few arrests. So I say two things can be true. This is what I told ICE. First, the Metropolitan government fully supports efforts to arrest and charge violent offenders so they can have first their day in court, then face possible punishment, and then face possible deportation if that is what the law calls for. Second, while my office cannot and does not represent any individual, on behalf of the mayor and many Nashville elected officials, I have said that the Metropolitan government stands behind advocates who are calling for full due process rights, and that includes the right to counsel. I'm hearing alarming stories about what's happening with the people who are detained and whether or not they are even provided an opportunity to talk to a lawyer or talk to a lawyer long enough to have a real conversation. These concerns are there. I will continue to raise them with ICE until I get some answers from them, and I am asking them to expedite their responses and give me the names of the people who have been arrested, the names of the people who have been detained, and where they are. So that is what I am trying to do on behalf of the Metropolitan government. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Deetz. We're going to hear the calls in just a minute, but before we do that, we're going to hear from Deputy Chief Gilder from MNPD. And you got to turn on the, there you go.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. I want to reiterate that the MNPD had no knowledge of or participation in the ICE operation that took place last weekend. As Director Deetz has stated, the first information related to this came at 10:04 a.m. Sunday dispatch to a North Precinct sergeant and an officer concerning an extra patrol at the ICE facility. Requests for extra patrol are common. The information relayed by the dispatcher was a bit unusual, prompting the sergeant and officer to go by the facility to see what the call was about. They nor anyone else in the police department had no knowledge of what had occurred the night before. We've worked very hard in the police department to build trust and relationships throughout Nashville's diverse communities. One of Chief Drake's core pillars is community engagement. As many of you know, we have an El Protector officer, Mario Diaz, whose job every day is to work closely with the Latino community.
Please. Ma'am.
You did nothing you knew.
Ma'am. Ma'am. Could we ask ask our attendee to leave, please? Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Chief. If you could continue, please.
Yes, ma'am. Officer Diaz's job every day is to work closely with the Latino community to let them know that we deeply value their partnership in the safety of the individual neighborhoods and all of Nashville. Since this weekend, Mario has reiterated that the MNPD was not involved in the ICE operation. We know well that our success depends on that support. And we want to send the message that the MNPD is here to enhance their safety. In fact, crime is down in Nashville because of help from Nashville's residents. I want to be very clear. Immigration status is irrelevant to the work the MNPD does. We rely on everyone, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, birthplace, or immigration status, to call us when they need help and report crime. The MNPD, in its charter, provided the duty of preservation of the peace, prevention and detection of crime, apprehension of criminals, protection of personal and property rights, and enforcement of laws of the state of Tennessee and ordinances of the Metropolitan government. And we cannot selectively choose which call for service to respond to, which First Amendment activity to protect, or allow public safety to be compromised. I would like to share that some information regarding immigration and MNPD's role in that, or lack thereof, is provided on our website, and I would encourage you to go there. There are questions and answer section, things such as how does the MNPD cooperate with ICE? Does the MNPD make immigration notices to ICE? Does immigration status impact enforcement of law? And several others. And I would encourage you to go there and review those questions and answers if you have questions about those topics.
So we'll get into questions from members here in just a minute, but we were going to hear the calls. And so Director Martini is going to oversee playing them, and then he'll share any context or feedback that he has.
Sure. The first is that original call referenced on May 1st.
Thursday, 2025, 11:47 and 53 seconds. Metro Police.
Hi, this is Inspector Sanders. I work for Homeland Security. The reason why I'm calling, I was hoping to set up extra patrols at an address off of Brick Church Park.
Okay.
I don't know the exact precinct. It might be North or Madison.
I think that's usually north, but go ahead with the address.
It's 501 Brick Church Park. It's our Immigrations and Customs Enforcement facility.
Okay, so 501 Brick Church Park Drive?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that north? I know it's kind of close to the border up there, so I wasn't sure.
It is, let me map that real quick. It's going to be north. It's like our north 30s. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
122, go ahead. History. Sorry, I'm working a
Oh, you're fine.
radio at the same time. Okay.
Yep, I get it. You're all busy.
All right. Extra patrol. And you said this is the Culture and Immigration Office?
It's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office, ICE facility.
Immigration
and Customs Enforcement, ICE.
Immigration.
And they are doing operations throughout the weekend, and they're concerned of the families having some backlash on Sunday. Possibly showing up there, that kind of thing.
The retaliation from family members on Sunday.
So ideally, if we could set up an extra patrol, maybe one per hour, from 0900 to 2100 hours on Sunday, that would be great. And then I can provide my phone number of their findings if they wouldn't mind reaching out to me. And
I think it's probably better if we just put you with a Madison sergeant or North sergeant. That way they can just tell their guys, rather than us having to try to set it up for every hour.
Okay. who are the? I used to work Metro and I used to work North. I was curious as to who's still out there.
Oh, look, give me 1 second.
Like on BD Cell, maybe.
You said for the next week, right?
No, just on Sunday. Just this Sunday.
On Sunday. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me get this sent up. I'm going to send it up at, let me go 10, I guess, because I imagine that's when everybody will be getting up. What is, 1 second. Let me get this, at least this first one scheduled.
Okay.
The 4th, oh, thanks. Okay, I've got that one scheduled. So I've got Megan Hoffman. That's one of their sergeants. Blessinger.
On 80 Cell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who else do we got? Polk. You know Polk?
I know of him. What about BD Cell? Is Stitcher or Scarborough, are they still there?
Oh, I can't say one's name. Hazard is there. I know he's been here for a while.
Who? I'm sorry.
Hazard. Hazzard. David.
No, I don't know him.
No.
You can provide my number, one of those, to like the supervisors on A and B detail. That's fine.
The lieutenant is Hyder. I don't know if you know.
I know of him, yeah. I just, not necessarily on like a personal level, but.
Okay, let me just get.
He was a little too high up there for me to develop.
No, I get you.
He's more important than me. Do you know if there's a D detail? Do they work on Sundays or are they off?
Yeah, the details should be. They don't check in until 3
or 12.
Yeah, they check in around 3 now. Yeah.
Okay.
Also be advised that can I get your last name, please?
Sanders.
Sanders. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
First name Jackson.
He provided his phone number here. So it was
and like I said, my first name is Jackson. Title is inspector, and I work for the Federal Protective Service of the Department of Homeland Security.
Security.
Because if it gets to a certain point, we'll have to respond. But if we can just kind of have it monitored, just to make sure nothing's getting crazy, that'd be great. And it also, no one might show up. It's just something that they might be. They're just trying to prevent, kind of anticipating some anger from the families.
Okay. Okay. All right. I've got that sent over to that dispatcher. So we'll have them give you a call shortly, okay?
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, let's move to the.
This audio is the radio dispatch traffic that Sunday morning advising the call to Metro Nashville police officers in that area.
Sunday, May 2025, 10:04 and 33 seconds.
30. I'm going to give you a heads up that we have an extra patrol at 501 Brick Church Park Drive at Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Homeland Security is actually requesting extra patrol. It says every hour on Sunday. Concerned there will be retaliation from family members due to detaining subjects. Send that to 33 when they're available, and I just wanted you to be aware of it.
Yeah, you can go ahead and send it to me and the zone officer.
33, I'm direct. If you can just leave me on the 41, and I can do that extra patrol.
I'll send it to your computer and just close me off of it so it should show up.
Simple.
Thank you for playing those. And just to give everybody context, like this afternoon was the first time any council member had heard any of this information, so it's a lot to process. So I want to let Director Steve Martini provide any comments that he'd like to related to the calls.
Sure. First and foremost, I'm hearing exactly the concerns and the frustrations voiced this evening. Yes, I'm sorry. First and foremost, I'm hearing and echo the sentiments that are expressed this evening. The story of the Venezuelan woman whose husband got off of work and coming home, didn't come home, and she can't find him is gut-wrenching. It's not what we're for. Absolutely, right. That story is the one I'm familiar with, but right, there's dozens and dozens. The Department of Emergency Communications exists to send help to people who ask for it, the end. Not based on immigration status or age or gender or insurance status or housing status or any of those things. Anybody who needs help gets help, period, the end. So I want to make sure that first and foremost, if there's somebody in a community that's feeling marginalized, that's feeling not seen, that they trust if they need help tonight, they can call. If they need help in the morning, they can call.
Everyone,
because that's what our purpose is to send that help in that moment. I would hate to think there's somebody in a dangerous situation and they don't reach out for help. The type of call here, the extra patrol call, we handle literally tens of thousands of these calls. We've handled 33,000 calls of this nature type since January of 2024. In that time, they're very routine. Somebody calls and says, I would like additional police presence in my space for whatever reason. We take the information, we put it in the computer-aided dispatch system and advise that to the officers to enforce as they choose, whether it's partner with another agency, like in this situation to say Tennessee Highway Patrol was a better solution for this location, whatever that was. Our job is to take that information and relay it to the field response partners for what they are looking for. This is uncharted territory for us for sure. In my 21 years of doing this in Tennessee, I have not trained for or responded to a mass roundup of citizens. We don't prepare for this, but we will now. We're exploring what to do,
please.
How to engage, what those solutions might look like. But I just wanted to reinforce that we're here. We are here to help. All languages. We've got solutions that process 40 plus languages, 180 plus if we're texting. If you need help, even if you don't speak English, you can call and get that help from emergency communications.
Thank you, Director Martini. But we're going to start taking questions from members, and I've out of deference to the Immigrant Caucus, I'm going to be starting with them, and then I'll get other members in the queue. But the very first question that I want to ask Director Deetsz, since obviously we are really struggling with people who have been disappeared from our community as a result of this issue, what steps other than writing letters are we going to be taking to be able to help bring them back? Everyone, please. I would like to hear from Director Deetsz, please. Thank you.
Let me say this. We are doing the things that we have the authority and the power to do. We are asking for documents. We are entitled to these documents. They should be public records. If necessary, I will file the FOIA request with ICE and with THP. I will not rest until we know the names of the people arrested, what their charges are, and the names of the people detained, what they were being detained for, and where they are located. The government, the state government, and the federal government do not have the right to keep that information private and secret from us. And I will advocate for them and do my very best to get information and share it with all of you, every member of this council, and the public generally as quickly as I get it.
And Director Deetz, thank you. And then what level of support have we gotten from, and I can pretty much guess the answer, but what level of support have we gotten from our members of Congress or our senators?
I'll say this. I was very proud of several members of our Davidson County legislative delegation who wrote a very strong letter, state representatives, state senators demanding information. They got a response from the Tennessee Highway Patrol this afternoon that was far from transparent and raised almost as many questions as they tried to answer. I am assuming they will do that. And I have been in touch with several members of the Davidson County delegation. They are very focused on this. I have not had any communications with any U.S. representative. The district where this happened, Andy Ogles, is the U.S. representative, and I don't believe he's expressed any concern at all about what happened over the weekend. I know that the mayor is trying to make connections at the state level and the federal level to try to get some support and some answers. But I have not been involved in those communications.
I understand that tomorrow Senator Cory Booker is going to be in Nashville. And so are you aware if there's any kind of conversation about him potentially meeting with Senator Booker while he's here?
I believe he plans to meet with Senator Booker.
Thank you.
I'm almost certain that was a conversation I had with him last night, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to start with Pro Tem Sepulveda. And hold on just a second while I recognize you. Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone who spoke today, sent in emails. All of that is on our desk, and to those who made the trip out here, I know it's 4 o'clock. Well, it was 4 o'clock. People had work, people have kids, and so I do want to acknowledge the sacrifice and coming, and I do want to thank the chair for agreeing to this special called meeting. I, along with my colleagues on the Immigrant Caucus, have divided up our tasks for tonight. We ended up being the neighborhood watch last night after council meeting. The only neighborhood watch I approve of, honestly. And we drove around after receiving reports of ICE agents along Murfreesboro Pike. And I do want to acknowledge the Remix for their work on Migra Watch. And throughout this time, there have been several community members who have submitted photos and videos. And I want to go through them right now and ask MNPD a couple of questions. So, Chair, is it possible to get a couple of those up? I think...
Pro Tem, I think that there is some question about the ones that you wanted to show and whether they're downloaded, because I don't know that they are.
They're on the drive. You could play them from the drive. Is that possible? I have the names of the ones I want played. There's 4 I would like highlighted.
Let me ask you a question. So while Eleanor is taking a look at that, if there is any kind of challenge with getting them pulled up, would you rather me move to the next member of the caucus or come back or wait?
That would work, Chair.
Okay.
So I guess
If you could, would you mind telling her which ones you're interested in
the
playing?
first one would be 3C7E videos. 3C7E 6B21. So it's a short video. If you could play it one more time. This is along Bell Road. The next one, can you play 4A75 EC or CC? I couldn't right now. 4A75, that one.
Sí, todo bien. No.
Sabes que no tienes que firmar nada ni decir
No, sí. All right.
everything checked out, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to give you a warning for the speeding, okay?
Okay.
Just watch that speed. Like I said, it's 45.
Okay.
So
All
we
right.
get a lot of crashes through here.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
No. All right.
Here's your license and all your documents back.
Okay.
Like I said, watch your speed, okay? Drive
Okay.
safely.
All right. Bye.
All right, and the last one for this bunch would be 26630. And I have one more video, but I want to go to the questions and the reason that I had those 3 specific videos played first, and it goes to jurisdiction. So the last one that was played is an apartment complex in my district in which several doors were being knocked. It wasn't just one specific person they were looking for. They were knocking multiple doors, and then they went into the neighborhoods knocking homes. And that occurred as well yesterday in Councilmember Nash and Councilmember Rutherford's district. The first video was from Bell Road. And then the second one is a stop that they made. My question is, in regards to jurisdiction, is Tennessee Highway Patrol required to inform MNPD and receive permission from MNPD if they are conducting what they called traffic stops in our streets? Nolensville Pike belongs to the state, but there were stops that were being made on back roads, Bell Road, Harding. These belong to us.
So for the question about jurisdiction and as far as legally where the THP is allowed to engage in traffic enforcement activities, I would have to defer to Director Deetsz because I just simply don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you as a matter of practice, I'm not familiar with the THP ever contacting us to advise us that they were going to engage in traffic enforcement regardless of the street location.
Thank you, council member. The state law makes it clear that THP has enforcement authority on state roads. And that includes federal highways where the state maintains it, but it also includes Nolensville Pike is a U.S. highway that's covered by that provision. Harding Place, Harding Pike is also a state route. So on those streets, they have absolutely the right to do it. We are looking into the issue because we have also heard that they were off of the main roads and onto some side roads. And I've been trying to look at the law, but frankly, I just have not had enough time. The state law was amended to give THP specific authority to work with immigration enforcement officers. So they have that authority, and whether that overlaps to give them the right to be on metro streets, I simply don't know the answer, but I will get to the bottom of that and let you know.
Thank you, Director Deetz. My understanding is that Tennessee Highway Patrol has still not officially opted into that program. So what they would be doing would be illegal. Them being on our streets would be illegal. I received a report right before I walked into the chambers that they were driving around one of my elementary schools in my district, and them being in that video. It's private property. I have also been informed that they have been staging on some private property belonging to Metro. So I would say, and we need to figure out why MNPD isn't enforcing their jurisdiction. And I guess my next question is where Chief Drake is.
As the council liaison, and this being a special call council meeting, I came to represent the Metro Police Department as I do each council meeting.
If we could get an answer as to if MNPD will be enforcing their jurisdiction over our roads, I think that would be important. Director Deetz, Chair Evans. My next question is in regards to tinted windows. I responded to a call in my district in which I filmed ICE agents taking away 2 of our community members. All of their windows were tinted. You cannot see inside of them at all. Is having tinted windows at that level illegal here in Davidson County?
Is the question to me or Director Deetz? I'm sorry.
Either or.
There is a window tint law in the state of Tennessee that allocates the percentage that the tint may be darkened to. You have to test that in order to determine the percentage. And then I also know there are exceptions for law enforcement vehicles as well, or there were.
Would federal agents be exempt from this?
Well, like I said, historically there has been an exemption within the statute for law enforcement vehicles. It's been a minute since I've reviewed the statute. I wasn't prepared to answer questions about it tonight. So that's about the best I can tell you at this point. I'm sorry.
Director Deetz, if you could get that answer to us, and then depending on that, if we could get MNPD to start enforcing and pulling over the ICE agents who are terrorizing our community. I'm almost done, Chair Evans.
Okay.
There are 3 specific there are 4 consulates. The Mexican consulate reached out to ICE agencies in which they were told that around 150 stops were made. They were informed that around 50 of them were Mexican nationals, and they have received that information. The Guatemalan consulate has reached out to ICE agencies and still have not received the names of their nationals. And I don't know what the Salvadorian consulate is doing here. So I would encourage you all to reach out to the consulates, because out of all of them, only 1 person was not Latino that was pulled over and taken. My next question is regarding El Protector program. When I was first elected, I was contacted by then the mix in regards to El Protector, who was Luis Lopez at that time, in which there was some trouble, and I organized a meeting. And I saw today a post from his Facebook account, responding to someone saying, civil crime is crime. If you are here illegally, it is time to consider going back where you came from. My question is, for El Protector program, how often is it evaluated and who is in charge of appointing that officer?
We're going to recognize Commander Laura. Hang on just a second. Let me make sure I can turn on the right mic.
Good afternoon. So the El Protector program, it's been around many, many years, and throughout the years, we've had several different ones. What happens is, as some of those, I was El Protector 2000, I think 10 or 11, and I was there for a couple of years. And then as time goes on, as officers move to different assignments, they will assign a new El Protector, somebody who's wants to work with the community, the Hispanic community, somebody who is well-versed and be able to speak Spanish and is able to communicate with the Latino community. And so we get, he's been there for probably a year or two, a couple of years, I believe. So again, it's appointed by, you know, the chief ultimately will say, you know, will accept it or not, but really it's one of those where myself, I've been involved in a lot of those selections to make sure that it's somebody that, again, can speak Spanish, that understands the language, understands the culture, and is a person that we believe that would be able to communicate and connect with the communities here in Nashville. What is your specific question on that?
How often is the officer evaluated?
So the evaluation process is really, you know, we get a lot of information from the communities that they deal with. I can tell you, when I was working as El Protector, and even now, I work with him, with Mario on specific, you know, communications that we have. A lot of the things that we get as feedback is from the community members, the organizations that we work with. Places like Casa Zafran, places like Plaza Mariachi, some of the media outlets that we utilize, that we talk to and we work with, and then just other organizations. We talk to community members that are involved with all different types of meetings that he attends. I attend some of the meetings he's at. And so it's one of those where we look at the need, and then we see what he's offering to the public and offering to the community. So he's always evaluated, and if we believe that, hey, you know what, at this time he's probably not the right person, then we will make sure that that's addressed and find somebody else. But again, you got to understand it's difficult to find somebody that wants to, has that desire to be in the public eye, because that position is somebody that's in the public eye, and not everybody wants to be in the public eye, especially somebody who is in the Latino community and the police department that may not speak the language well, things like that. So we are constantly evaluating, always evaluating, but until we see something that concerns us, we're going to allow him to continue doing the work that he's doing.
Can we receive a copy of his last evaluation?
I'm not sure if that's something that's...
Yeah, all officers are evaluated on an annual basis, and to my knowledge, those are public record. So we can share that.
Thank you. Going back to the video, the last video to play will be IMG_9552. Director Gilder, would you be able to speak to what we are seeing in that video?
So I'm not positive, but I believe that is the video that was sent to us where there was concern that it may be related to the immigration enforcement, and that the video was actually an operation by our vehicle crimes division that was taking a known burglary suspect into custody who is not an immigrant, was not related to that enforcement action at all.
The information I have, council member, and that was the video I referenced earlier today, is that it was a stolen vehicle. The driver had 2 outstanding felony warrants. The video was taken near Casa Zafran and on Rosedale and and Nolensville Road, and that the person who was taken into custody was was a white male, totally unrelated to the crackdown overnight on Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Can we get the police report sent to us?
Sure.
Chair, those are my questions for now, and I'll let my colleagues on the Immigrant Caucus go.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we'll recognize Councilmember at Large Zulfat Suara. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for calling the meeting, and thanks to everyone that came out as well. I want to echo Sandra's call about the remix and all the people that put their bodies on the ground, taking these photos and videos to send to us. Thanks to those that are also helping the families with their needs as well as legal representation. What happened last weekend was cruel. It was unimaginable. Sandra talked about we decided on what all of us were going to ask. I put out a video on Monday talking about how horrific this is. I also said there were allegations that law enforcement was involved, but I was short of saying that we did anything wrong. I said we're going to find out at this meeting how much we knew and when we knew it. I typically don't, and I had, people calling me, the remix folks calling me, sending me all these images, and I was like, no, we will give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. I will not make any comment until after this meeting. I typically don't write my speech, but today I thought this was so important. I started writing, and I was talking about the constitutional rights of our community, and my question, a whole list of questions about when did MNPD know, what did law enforcement know, and all of that. 20 minutes before I left my house, I got a text about the dispatch call. And let me tell you, as a citizen, I am shocked, I am mad, I am betrayed. As somebody that feels like we have to continue to build trust in the community, that eroded all those trusts. I know for some of us, we can separate MNPD and Deetsz, and we can play with words any way that we want to. The fact was somebody knew May 1st. And the fact was in all the communication that we've had, even in the mayor's address and all the things that went out, nobody mentioned May 1st. Up till this afternoon, I believe nobody knew anything until the morning of. And that was a lie. And that is how people do not trust the government. How do we build relationship when we cannot trust the words of our leaders? I feel exactly what everybody back there is feeling because I felt like I was let down. I took that word to mean what it meant. So I came here shocked and shaking because that's not what I expected. I would have loved for somebody, MNPD Director Deetsz, even the mayor, in all the things that went out, to say, dispatch got something on May 1st. MNPD did not know until, that would have even made it better for me. Nobody said anything. Everybody acted as if no one knows anything. That is law enforcement. So you cannot separate it for us. And we have been talking and pleading and begging. When this thing happens, lives are affected. People's lives are thrown into shambles. And I always felt personally, we cannot count on the federal government. We know the state government does not have our back. My hope has always been Metro government. And that government disappointed me today. So we have to do better. We must do better. We have to be intentional. We cannot play with words. While we're trying to figure it out and plan and write letters, people's lives are being destroyed. So I'm going to ask my question now, but I have to say those first because people making noise in the back, being frustrated, it's real. I feel it. I can barely control myself. When is this going to go on? This is a council. This is a metro that is progressive. This is a mayor that knows better. We should not be doing this. So, my question to the Deetsz director. Over the years, and I cannot remember those of us that served last time may be able to help me with this. I know we've had conversation about ICE before the state and the federal government brought so much to follow, where we talk about what is the protocol when somebody get a call about ICE. When something happened to a department, when ICE walk in the door, what are people supposed to do? And I could remember, everybody can clear that for me, where we said it has to be escalated to the next person. Do you guys not have that in your policy as to if ICE is mentioned, this should go to the next person?
I believe specifically the policy is if ICE reaches out, if Immigration and Customs Enforcement reaches out to our department, impacts us. And I know it's splitting hairs in this situation. It was the Federal Protective Services that covers the building facility. So the request we got was bring extra patrol for protest, peaceful assembly, whatever you might call it, that might escalate at that location on that day. Definitely this caught us as much by surprise as everybody else. We took a phone call about a request for an increased police presence. We had no concept that it would scale.
People in the back, please. Okay, please. I'm as frustrated as you. I'm shaking as I'm standing. But we're not going to get anywhere if we don't have accountability. They have to answer the questions. And they will not answer it if you all are, please, okay? Please. Give them the time to answer the question. We're all mad. I know, but please, I know, just please let them answer the question. Please let them answer the question. Thank you. Yes,
we had
sir.
no concept to the scale of this response, where it would happen, any of those things. We knew that Sunday morning there was the possibility, and you heard it in the call, that he said maybe nobody shows up. There's the possibility that somebody might show up frustrated at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning at that building. So that's what we went with. Certainly, hindsight being 2020, we are having a lot of conversations now with the mayor's office and with legal to determine what sort of notifications we can put in place. And we have made steps, notifications for certain locations, notifications on keywords, and we'll engage other conversations. But this, again, 21 years of doing this in Tennessee and emergency communications, I have never seen a situation like this.
Okay. So what we had was just about if they call about your department, not if they just call in and mention ICE generally. But we're going to fix that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Officer Gilder, I know that MNPD, according to what everybody is saying, did not know until 10 a.m. There were 350 stops on our roads. There were cars all over the place. When MNPD is driving by and sees so many stops, do officers not even wonder or inquire as to what's going on?
So it's not uncommon to see other jurisdictions engaging in law enforcement activities within Davidson County, THP included. And yes, sometimes when officers are available, they'll stop and check, just make sure an officer doesn't need backup. If there's anything going on, any kind of assistance, anything that relates to Metro. But again, this was my understanding is this was the overnight hours. There are very, the number of officers that work in the entire South Precinct, it's a large land area, are limited because there's less calls for service during that time period. So I don't know that an officer even drove past one of these traffic stops. I don't know.
I'm sure.
Dr. Call.
Please. Okay, listen.
Everybody.
Okay, I think what we're trying to get here is noting what did not work or what we did not what we ignored is the right word, and what do we do going forward? 350 stops is a lot. If citizens are noticing it to the point that they're taking videos and taking pictures, MNPD definitely. Otherwise, what is MNPD doing? I mean, like, if there's a lot of stops, if there's a bad person in our midst that we're supposed to be protected against, and that person is being handled by somebody else, I would think our officers should want to know. And I think if it's something that we've been ignoring for whatever reason, I think it would be good going forward if we start noticing what is going on in our streets, will be what I would recommend. I also want to know, and this is a tough one for me, but power has to check power for things to work. When was the administration informed of the call to Deetsz?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Why did your office deem that it was not important to inform the administration before yesterday?
Forgive me, when you say administration, the administration
The
of my-
mayor's office.
Right. The administration of my department was aware of this call, that it happened on Thursday the 1st, rather than when it was created in that CAD Sunday the 4th, yesterday. So when we became aware of it, the mayor's office and the broader administration also became aware of it. It was a routine call. Like I said, she plugged it into the system to be processed on the day of the request. When the request was happening, it stayed with that dispatcher that afternoon when it was requested.
Okay, all right. It's okay. We're looking at all of this. Officer, I keep saying Officer Gilda. I'm so sorry. What's your title so I can?
Deputy Chief Gilbert.
Deputy Chief. I'm so sorry. Can you tell me, and if you don't have this information, if you can send it to us, how many patrols, MNPD patrol, did we have in the Nolensville, Hyden Park, Nolensville area for the last 2 weekends prior to last weekend?
I don't have that information with me, but I am happy to look that up.
Please, because I would like to compare them to be able, because I can tell you that when we drove around last night, there was a lot of activity by MNPD in that corridor. And so I think it would be good to find out 2 weeks ago before this call came in, and then last weekend, how did the numbers shift and why? And I would like to know why it shifted as well. My last question to Director Deetsz. I started by saying that I was shocked, I was betrayed, that trust is a big thing. People don't trust government, and that's why we have a lot of issues. The government could be doing everything right, but if the people don't think they represent them, it's a problem. I want our citizens to trust us. I want our citizens, when we say something, to believe that's what it is. If MNPD and our law enforcement is going to cooperate with ICE, that's fine. Just tell us. Then we'll figure it out. But if we're not, then we need to be proactive and intentional about it. So to you, Director Deetsz, and I don't know how you're going to answer this, but how can Metro live up to its promise of not separating families? What is it that you believe we can do, number one, to help the ones that are already affected? You already highlighted the letters and you're going to follow it, and I appreciate that. But we need to put some teeth to it in terms of the unconstitutionality of some of the actions. And then going forward, in front of all of us, how do we live up to our promise of, yes, we will protect our citizens? Thank you.
Council member, I believe you fully understand this. Immigration enforcement is one of the areas where the Constitution and federal law gives the federal government incredible powers, and it gives local governments no power. That's why Metro Police is not involved in immigration enforcement. It's done at the federal level. And so I wish I could say I have a remedy in my toolkit to fix this problem, other than to lobby and try to get the information about who was impacted. And So we are doing everything we can. So if you have an idea, if anyone here has an idea for something they believe the law department can do, I would be very, very glad to hear it. I think everyone knows that I do not shy away from opposing this president. I have sued Donald Trump's administration twice in the last 6 weeks. I am going to be doing it again. But under the law, we have very little power, other than to use our influence and leverage to try to get the government to do the right thing, because the federal government is clearly not doing the right thing.
Thank you, Director Deetz. I'm going to transition to Chair Prepty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to associate myself with the comments made here before. Thank you to everybody in the public. Thank you to Remix for all the work that you all are doing. Just wanting to recognize that these sweeps are having a broader impact on our community than we know currently. I asked MNPS to pull the attendance records for our district-wide right now. We're sitting at about 91% school attendance. For Glencliff High School, that is down to 86%. So we are seeing direct effects on that. My line of questioning, however, I want to focus specifically on two areas. First, Mayor O'Connell issued Executive Order 30 in January of 2024. That executive order directs all metro agencies, and I'm going based off of the line of questioning by Councilmember Suara on this, but it directs all metro agencies, every single agency, that they are to report all immigration communications to the mayor's office. It specifically reads that communications between federal immigration authorities and a metro department/office pertaining to the department or office policy or practices must be reported to the mayor's office, and that any individual within those offices have to report that to a designated person within their office. So my first question for you is for Director Martini. Within your office, do you have a specific person who is designated to be that go-between who employees in the 911 center can articulate and let them know that this communication has taken place?
Sure, that responsibility falls to me.
Okay. And so within your standard operating procedures and in your, let me back up. What is in your training manual and operating procedures instructing employees as to how they enforce or how they abide by this executive order?
We don't have that, and that's one of the improvements that we need to make.
Okay. Because it's sort of clear to me, looking not only of the transcript of the call, but also the timeline that Director Deetz has provided for us, that the call at 11:47 a.m. on May 1st falls directly within that. The timeline that we are given is that Sanders told the caller that there would be an operation throughout the weekend, and there was certain pushback by the families coming to the ICE facility on Sunday. The frustration is palpable and shared by all of us. And so it is clear to me that this particular communication falls within the purview of Executive Order 30. And I'm directly calling on you and all of our metro agencies to ensure that we have good standard operating policies and procedures. Same question for you, Deputy Chief Gilder. In line with that executive order, are there designated individuals in each precinct who are responsible for communicating whether or not there are any communications with federal immigration authorities to the mayor's office?
So every MNPD employee is expected to report communication in conformance with Executive Order 30. It was Executive Order 8 under the prior administration, and we did annual training on it as required by the executive order. And they're expected to fill out the form that is included in the roll call training, explains how to get to it, how to fill it out. It's a web-based form. It comes directly to me, and then I make that report to the Mayor's Office of New Americans.
On Sunday, May 4th, did you receive any such communications? Or any kind of reports like that you just referenced that would come directly to you? Did you receive anything like that?
So in this particular incident, we started learning about the communication from other sources, from council members and whatnot, prior to a report being filed through the online reporting process. Those reports have been made, though, since that time in accordance with the executive order.
Okay, understanding that, but my direct question is, on Sunday the 4th, had you received any of those reports? Understanding that they've been filled out since, but on Sunday the 4th, directly through MNPD, had you received any of those reports?
Like I said, the reports came via different format, not the online web-based report. They reported up through the chain of command that day. The chain started trying to figure out what's going on and what the call was related to. So that was how the notification was made on that day. To ensure conformity with the executive order, we since made those reports via the normal reporting process.
Okay, thank you for that answer, because in listening to the radio call-outs from dispatch, I wrote it down, but I might be misquoting it here. It stated directly that Homeland Security is asking for extra patrols in relation to detentions. Many of you have heard me oftentimes speaking on this council floor about the importance of our institutional integrity, and we have exposed a major gap in our institutional integrity. It is really incumbent that we make sure that we have those standard operating procedures and that every single person in every single department understands what their responsibility is as it relates to this executive order. It goes without saying that I am concerned about this. I want to move forward about other forms of support that were provided on Sunday, May 4th. But before doing that, I want to back up and sort of talk generally about MNPD's aviation unit. Chief Gilder, could you talk to us about what the standard operating procedure of the aviation unit is, in particular, how are decisions made when the aviation unit is deployed, and who is the person who is making that decision? If you could talk about that, please.
Sure. So the aviation division has regular operating hours that they cover. They typically work in 12-hour shifts, providing coverage most of the day, depending on the day of the week, and depending upon weather and other factors, maintenance and whatnot. And typically, when they are working, they conduct patrols. They're sometimes just up in the air, proactively engaging in patrol, ready to respond to an incident, so that, because there's obviously a time it takes to get the aircraft ready to get it airborne. And then in other instances, they are dispatched by a request from an officer in the field, supervisor. And under policy, a supervisor has the ability to call out aviation if they need some air support. For instance, if they're not working and maybe somebody goes missing in the woods and that sort of thing, they can do a call out and request their assistance.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if we could have Councilmember Sepulveda recognized for a brief moment. She has an exhibit or a video that I think would be helpful for us to pull up at this time.
Sure, I'll recognize Councilmember Sepulveda.
Thank you, Chair. If we could pull up in the folder that has the pictures.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
And it should be the last one. Unnamed should be that one. There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Prepty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what we have on the screen is a screenshot from social media. I cannot read the caption from here because my eyes are not that good. But essentially, this appears to be or is an MNPD helicopter that is providing support on May 4th at the ICE facility. My question is, who made the decision to call out this helicopter, and what was the specific purpose, and what was any tactical benefit to Metro that we gained from having a Metro helicopter flying over the ICE facility?
Thank you. So my understanding is that the morning after officers responded, there was folks beginning to gather at the facility, and before the Metro Police had been relieved by state and federal law enforcement to take over security, that the officers that were there requested aviation to do a flyover to determine the number of folks that were in attendance, which I will tell you is pretty standard when we have protests or gatherings. If we're trying to determine crowd size and make plans with respect to contingency planning for their safety and for everyone's safety, do we have enough officers available, and that sort of thing. So they were trying to get a crowd estimate.
Chair Prepty, did you have?
I've got a few follow-ups with that.
Okay.
Sort of just gathering my thoughts, if I could have the chair's indulgence for a brief moment.
Yes.
So, understanding, you said that the officers who were on the ground called out for the aviation sport, correct?
My understanding is that, yes, somebody that was with the MNPD that responded there that morning when the crowd began amassing, there was a request made to aviation. I don't know who exactly made the request.
Okay. Chair, I'm gonna cede the rest of my time and gather some of my thoughts and potentially be able to come back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to go to Chair Vo. You're recognized.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And of course, I want to thank you so much for calling this meeting. Thank you so much to the community, everyone coming out to speak. And I have a couple of questions. The first one for Deputy Chief Gilder. You were mentioning earlier that, crime is down in Nashville. So can you share what is the most recent crime statistics that we have over the, from year to date or over the last 12 months?
Sure. Overall, Part 1 offenses are down about 8%. I would, if you give me a minute, I can pull up some data about if you've got questions about specific offenses. We're down in most categories. There's a couple of offenses that we're slightly up in.
Great, thank you. And, I wanted to know if you can also break down maybe where the top, areas that we are seeing, higher crime in Davidson County based on the data that you have, if you can share that.
What parts of Davidson County are experiencing more crime? Mm-hmm. That'll take me a little bit more time because that would be parts that it's not in I can pretty quickly access a weekly report that we generate that breaks down crime by category. It doesn't necessarily, I don't have an analysis on hand with respect to crime in a particular part of the county. I can obviously get that, but that's not as easily accessible for me right at this moment.
Sure, if you can, because I'm trying to get to the point where, we want to understand as the community, the areas that were targeted, from Nolensville Pike, Murfreesboro Pike, Harding Place, Bell Road. Where did these fall in comparison to, the overall crime, and trying to get and paint that picture of clear understanding for our community?
One thing that may be helpful in that regard is each month we produce a report with respect to crime by council district. So you may have that in your inbox, but I'm also happy to look into that for you as well.
Yeah, if you can specifically, just like whenever Councilmember Swore was talking about what the stops look like 2 weeks prior, and if we can just overlap that, I think that'd be very helpful. And then my next question is for Director Martini. I just wanted to follow up whenever you were discussing about changes that you all would be making, with standard operating procedures. Can you give us or provide a date and, and a commitment to when those will be updated and share the changes that have been made, addressing the gaps that we have uncovered due to this past weekend, and then come back to the council and present that?
Sure, absolutely. And to now, for now, I can tell you, we made changes. I understand Councilmember Prepteeth's concern about having an individual make a report. We have 186 operational dispatch employees, requiring 186 individuals every call, every day, every week to remember every time some exception event to do that right. I think is a lot to ask of them when their focus is so heavily on emergency incidents that are happening in front of them. So we really rely heavily on automation now. So we engaged with our technology yesterday when we determined this gap. A lack of knowledge about the call. We knew it was created on Sunday. We didn't catch that it was called in on Thursday and created in the CAD later. So we've created notifications automatically inside of our computer-aided dispatch system that are working now for one specific address that is a federal facility of this one, and we'll grow that list to include other sensitive locations, and then also engage a separate software to send notifications on keywords, right? Immigration and ICE, those types of keywords that would trigger, and those go to 3 of us to see immediately and then engage immediately. So absolutely, we can bring some shape to that standard operating procedure and share it here, of course.
Great, thank you so much. And, I just think back to a time when I was in elementary school and I was driving with my father and my siblings, and we got pulled over, by the police. And my dad got a ticket because he didn't have his lights on, but it was still daylight. And I still hold and remember this stop. For decades, remember, were we being racially profiled? Why were we pulled over? It makes no sense, and that ticket, back when I was in elementary school, cost a lot of money. And that cost, our family, stress. And, I think about all the families that went through that I'm still holding today as an adult that they experienced a few days ago. And, for me, the community has asked, they've been asking for months, instead of focusing on guardrails, instead of focusing on fuses, why are we not focusing on a community safety plan? And my question to each of you all is, will you commit to creating a safety plan in partnership with the community and making that a priority over the next 30 days? This is something why does it have to take 150 families being torn apart for us to make immigrants and people of color a priority in this city? And I think that is what's been so frustrating, is that seeing that it needs to happen for it to matter. And I want our city to be a city that doesn't wait for people to be harmed, doesn't wait for families to not have their parent come home, to not have their kid not know where their parent is, for us to say, oh, we need to make some changes. Oh, we need to improve our standard operating procedures. Because if it happened to your family, what would you do? You would be angry too. And you would not accept that this is acceptable. And I stand for every family who is living in fear, because I know what that is like. And I don't want that for anyone else. And I really ask for you all, will you commit to this? Because this is important to the people of Nashville.
Did y'all want to, have any comment around that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the MNPD is absolutely committed to working with our community, getting their feedback about what it is they need and what they want from their police department. And I think that's reflected in the fact that we've engaged, year to date, we've engaged in over 348 community events. Commander Laura can talk very specifically about the level of engagement that we do at the precinct level, because each precinct's different, each community is different. And we try to engage every single one of those within our precincts. And if you want to hear a little bit from Commander Laura about that, I'm happy to also, kick it over to him, let him talk about that. But absolutely, community engagement is Chief Drake's one of his 3 core pillars. The police department is the community, and the community is the police department. We cannot function and address crime if we don't have community support.
Simply put, I echo that. Really, our department is, we're not completely reactive, but we are heavily reactive to phone calls from the public, right? See something, say something. We've been saying for 25 years. The say something comes to our department, and we're the send part of that help. See, say, send is really our lane. I cringe to think that we would create an environment, especially within the Department of Emergency Communications with the public, that there's a fear or a hesitation to call for help, because that's the only way we know there's help that needs to be sent. So absolutely engaging in conversations about how we continue to support those conversations, and people feel trust in reaching out, that if they see and say what is happening, they're going to get the right help to the right place at the right time. That is our only purpose.
Excuse me, ma'am. We're going to continue with chair vote, please.
Okay, thank you so much. And I do want, if we can, what I'm asking for the commitment is to get a meeting scheduled with legal, MNPD, the mayor's office, DEC, whoever needs to be there, and to have it set so that we are not just saying it here and then forgetting about it. And then I also want to know, if y'all are willing also, if this is a priority when we talk about the safety plan, prioritizing the communities that have been harmed, would you commit to, funding in your budget to address this? And so I want, I would like to know and understand if y'all are willing to look at that as well in this year's budget.
Well, ma'am, I believe this year's budget's been submitted. I mean, the mayor submitted the budget, so I don't know that the MNPD is in a position to make a budget modification at this point in the process. Absolutely, we're willing to commit to a meeting to, discuss the ideas that you have with respect to a safety plan, meet with our other partners within Metro. So yes, I can commit to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry, Director Martini, did you have something?
Just to that point, in this budget, we have requested 5 additional dispatch personnel to staff the Southeast Precinct Radio, which specifically serves this part of the community that was impacted over the weekend. So additional communications coverage, additional resources available to receive those calls and send the help into this neighborhood exists in this budget.
Director Deetsz, did you have anything you wanted to share related to Chair Vo's question?
So since we don't deal directly with the residents of Nashville, it's a little bit different for us because we represent the metropolitan government, the departments, the boards, the commissions. I know where the heart of our law group is, and I know they are very supportive of the immigrant community. We do everything we can with language translation and other things to be proactive with that support. The mayor's budget includes some additional positions for us, and we're very grateful for that, and we're hopeful that this council will see fit to adopt that request for us. So I'm willing to meet anytime. Chair Evans texted me yesterday and said, will you come tomorrow? And I said, yes, I'm here. I'll be back if you want to meet. As long as I'm not on vacation, which is next week, I will meet with you anytime, anywhere.
Thank you, Director Deetsz. Let me go back and catch Chair Prepty, and then we're going to start getting into a list. I've got Vice Chair Huffman and then Council at Large Porterfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be very quick with this. Just wanted to follow up with Chief Gilder. Do you know at what time the helicopter was dispatched on May 4th?
I don't off the top of my head, but I am happy to add that to my list of follow-ups.
Okay. Do you know how long the helicopter was operating in that area?
My understanding is they did a flyover for a head count. So that would lead me to believe that they didn't remain in the area, but I can also provide you that information in the follow-up.
And what is the price per hour for Metro operating that aviation unit?
I'm sorry, I don't have that with me, but I'll provide that for you in the follow-up.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Prepty. Let's go to Vice Chair Huffman.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few questions from me. I want to lead off, though, by saying that nothing that happened this weekend and that continues to happen is right. It's a travesty. It's unthinkable. It's to the result of failures in immigration reform on the national level. That's the blame that I put it at. About 15 years ago, the Republicans in Congress, they fully blocked efforts to do a bipartisan deal that could have made it a little bit easier to become a citizen in this country. A little bit easier. But instead, they took another path. Why did they do it, though? They did it because the outrage mobilizes political bases. That's my theory, at least. And that's why we're here, y'all. That's why we're here. And then meanwhile, cities like ours are forced to navigate the consequences with limited options and even more limited authority. That's the frustrating part. So I just want to go on the record saying that before I get into a few questions. The first question I have is around the training and guidelines for the MNPD. When a new officer comes in or when someone's doing retraining, what kind of guidelines are provided to those officers concerning interactions with ICE authorities, handling situations such as immigration communities? That's the first question.
Sure. So MNPD officers receive a lot of legal instruction. Obviously, they have to know the law with respect to them going out and enforcing it. And one of the things that they're informed of is that they don't have federal immigration authority. And so there is not training on how to engage in federal immigration enforcement because we lack the authority to do that. And since that's outside of our purview, we don't train officers on how to do that. What we do train officers on is, like I said, the executive order with respect to notification, about, accepting. We have training that we put out occasionally about accepting foreign documents for the purposes of being able to cite and release so that they can know that they can accept those documents. And because one of the rules is that you have to properly identify the person before you cite them and release them. So we do have training in that respect.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Follow-up question, kind of related, future protocols. So in light of the current activities, the activities over the weekend, are there any plans to review or revise the protocol related to immigration enforcement?
Well, again, as far as enforcement, the MNPD lacks the authority to engage in immigration enforcement. So I don't think you're going to see any change in that regard. We did put out annually we do the roll call training with reporting contacts with immigration authorities. And the last training that we just did that on was February 27th of this year. So we do it on the annual basis, which is what the order requires, and we'll continue to comply with that executive order.
Around transparency, and I'll wrap it up with this, Chair. Will the MNPD commit on the record here today that to make any rulings, reports, filings related to the incident publicly available?
Even so, we are subject to the same public records law as everybody else in the Metro government. And so, yes, we are certainly committed to providing public records. We do it on a daily basis. We have an extensive public records unit that gets thousands of requests every year. And so, yes, if there's any records that you need or the members of the public request pursuant to state law, we would be happy to provide those.
Thank you, sir. That's all, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Council at Large Porterfield.
Thank you so very much, Chair. Thank you for the community for being out today. And thank you all for being here. I have a lot of questions, y'all, and I'm gonna try to make this as quickly as possible. And I would appreciate if you all could answer in a clear, concise manner so I can get through as many as possible. My first question, there will be operations throughout the weekend. What did the dispatcher perceive that to mean?
I don't think there was a perception of what that was meant to mean. What we were asked to do was provide or share a request for extra patrol for law enforcement Sunday morning at a location. We didn't venture to assume what that meant, where that was, what scale.
So I came into this meeting giving our agencies the benefit of the doubt because I had not heard that call. They said clearly there will be operations throughout the weekend. If the call just said we are asking for extra patrols, that would be one thing. That call did not say that. They said there would be operations. So someone had to think about what does operations mean. So to the dispatcher, who is obviously not here, can you all find out from the dispatcher, what did they perceive operations to mean? And what training are they going to get so that this does not happen again? Because there is no reason why that should not have gone up the chain so that other people knew about that. Now, I understand that there are breakdowns in policy and that happens all the time. And I even understand what you said about, it's over 100 something and they're getting all these people and they're getting all these calls and marking exceptions. I completely understand that. But something as serious as ICE and federal agencies and Homeland Security, especially under this administration, there's no reason that could slip through the cracks. So I don't care if they have to go on hold and before they take another call, that has to go up the food chain. That cannot be business as usual and taking the next call. That's number one. Number two, how does ICE typically inform MNPD of operations or that they will be detaining people?
To my knowledge, they've never informed us of impending operations or that they were going to be detaining people.
Thank you. Number three, what is the protocol of officers to notify their supervisors of ICE activities? And DEC, what's the protocol for both departments?
So for us, we would expect them to notify their supervisor. If it was something that required some imminent notice, then that would go up through the chain of command. And then for like a routine type of notification, things like we've had situations where they've contacted us I'm trying to think of an example of a communication I've sent over. Sometimes you stop folks and they have an administrative flag in the NCIC. That's nothing we can enforce or that we can deal with, but there's a contact there. So that gets reported. That's the type of contact that would go through the web service.
What's imminent notice?
Immediate notifying your supervisor.
What's an example of something that would require imminent notice?
Well, I would think something like this situation where you have like a contact that involves like an ongoing operation, that would be something more imminent than a routine notification and a hit and an NCIC query is what I'm saying.
So on Sunday morning, did Sergeant, is it Layman or Lamont or what is it? What's the sergeant name? Sergeant Megan and Officer Corey Bean, did they immediately let you all know once they went to the ICE office and saw what was happening? Did they immediately was it passed up the food chain at that point?
I know that MNPD leadership started getting notified. I don't have the timeline down. I believe these notifications were occurring around the same time that they were getting there and finding out what was going on. We were starting to get notifications from like council members, for example, that, hey, something was going on overnight. Were you guys involved? And so all that kind of started taking place around the same time, as my understanding.
Do we know if they notified specifically? Because I'm trying to understand, do people not understand policy or do we not have policy in place?
Sure, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying, though, is I don't know that this was a situation where there was, that they weren't occurring at the same time so that they didn't have a chance to go up through a chain of command. It very well may have. I would have to talk to the sergeant about what notification she made and exactly when. But again, from my discussions I've had, my understanding is these things were occurring around the same time. So it may not have been a need to send it up because it was already the notifications were being made.
Do we know why that sergeant left and came back? Is that they were there, they left and took other calls, and then they came back? Do we know why they came back?
So sergeant is a supervisor, and they don't answer calls for service generally. They show up for certain types of calls for service. And my understanding is that because of the unusual nature of the request for the extra patrol is why she went over there in the first place. Normally, an extra patrol would just get dispatched to an officer and they would go drive through and do the extra patrol. I think she was trying to do a little due diligence and determine what exactly is going on, so she rode over there as well.
But I'm asking, why did she come back? Because it says that she went and then she left and took some calls and then she came back.
Yeah, because there was started to be a crowd that amassed, and that is the type of thing, if there's a protest or possibly that's going to occur and we think might be some issues, not with the crowd, but just being prepared, that is the type of situation where I would expect a supervisor to return to the scene and kind of assess and make determinations.
Okay, thank you. And I'm almost done, Chair. I'm like halfway through. We talked about THP having authority and whether or not they have authority on local streets. If they do not have authority, Director Deetsz, if we determine that they do not have authority on local streets, what recourse do we have as a local municipality against them being on local streets? And are we planning to pursue any options that we have?
First of all, I will get you the answer on the authority. And second, I will be in conversations with the mayor and would expect that there would be meetings directly with THP so that we come to some sort of common agreement as to where their authority stops and starts. To the extent there are limits, we will work with them to make sure those limits are honored to the extent they exist. I do want to add, if I could, briefly one thing, because there were 2 reports filed today under Executive Order 30. One of them says that on Sunday, May 4, Chief John Drake called Ronna Soud with Homeland Security to ask about immigration operations in Nashville. At the time, MNPD leadership and frankly, MNPD didn't know about what had happened with the immigration efforts overnight. So it's clear that on Sunday, this escalated to the chief of police, and he made a phone call to find out. And what he was told by Ms. Soud was that they were not going to be in Nashville, but instead working neighboring counties, and they were working with THP. There were no discussions about the overnight enforcement efforts, and so there was no disclosure by Homeland Security of what had occurred. But Chief Drake, it did get escalated, and he made a phone call and frankly was misled.
Thank you. Do we know if the Sheriff's Department has been partnering with ICE and or allowing ICE into jails or any of their metro facilities that's under the jurisdiction of the sheriff?
Under federal law, if someone is booked and the second the fingerprints are in the system, those fingerprints go directly to Homeland Security. And Homeland Security, under federal law, has the right to ask the sheriff to detain a person for up to 48 hours. And Sheriff Hall does comply with federal law. There were comments earlier about the sheriff's office making money off of contracts for holding immigrants in prison, and that has not happened in the last 5 years.
We ended the rent-a-bed program in 2019.
That ended 5 years ago.
Correct.
So there is no voluntary housing of ICE detainees at the sheriff, other than the 48-hour period, which is mandated by law.
Thank you. Do we know if ICE, because we heard a report that ICE has been staging on Metro property, is this something that we have allowed, and is this something that we have the ability to stop? Since my assumption is if it's on Metropolitan property, that is public property. So do we have any authority to stop ICE from staging on Metro property?
Well, let me say this. The first I heard of that was sitting here tonight. I will look into it, and I believe ICE should be asking permission if they want to use Metro property for any of their operations. I'm not aware that they have asked. We are looking at the new state law, the state law in Sanctuary City has been in place for many years, but there's a new criminal aspect to it that goes into effect July 1. And because of that, we will be advising the police and all metro departments about any changes that need to happen under that law. And we are using outside counsel to help us get some advice.
Thank you. Almost done, Chair. So we talked about needing some policy changes, and if that needs to be like legislative changes, so Director Darby, if we need to do any legislative changes through council, we are letting you know that we want to do any legislative changes through council that we need to do, but we have to have policy in place as soon as possible to not only let the higher ups know if there is any communication with ICE, but we also need to make sure that we're letting the community know, because the community is able to get that information out faster than we will ever be able to get out as Metro. So if that is some information that is known, like if knowledge of that call had come out that there were going to be operations on Sunday, then people would not have been out or may not have been out as much at that time because the word can get out through the community. So we have to make sure that we're being good community partners with people that are trying to keep folks safe in the community. My last kind of set of questions here, is there any state or federal mandate that requires local law enforcement, MNPD, and or the sheriff to assist with ICE? So between now and I know the new law is going into effect July 1, but do we have any mandate that we have to help ICE?
Council member, that is changing because, for instance, Section 287G is a voluntary program. There's an effort to make that a mandatory program and put cities that don't adopt it on a list of sanctuary cities, and I believe that's unlawful. I have lawyers in D.C. I postponed my phone call with them today so I could be here, but I'm speaking with them tomorrow. In Trump 1, the president did try to require local law enforcement. There was litigation, and most of the courts ruled against Trump. We are also beginning to see grant agreements come through the pipeline that require Metro to cooperate with ICE. We will very likely file a lawsuit over that once we get our advice prepared and a lawsuit on file.
Thank you. Terry, Council Lady Vogt talked a little bit about her childhood. I'll say something about my childhood. My grandmother raised me in a way that we were to always, under every circumstance, was to avoid the appearance of evil. And that meant don't allow yourself to even be caught up. So in this case, MNPD was in a place where these things were happening. And I do believe that the higher ups did not get this notification. I do believe that MNPD, the people that needed to know, did not know about this information. However, when we have MNPD cars, even if it's just for crowd control, that does nothing to build trust in the community. That erodes the trust in the community. And frankly, it pisses everybody off because you got a crowd of people back here pissed off. You got council members pissed off, and you got people that are watching this that are pissed off. So we have to make sure that Metro is doing everything that we can to make sure that we're nowhere near these operations. So if there's any legal way that we can completely stay away from the operations, then we need to do everything in our power to make sure that our officers are nowhere near this so that there will be no confusion. People wouldn't think that MNPD had anything to do with it if it wasn't helicopters in the air and if it wasn't pictures of police cars out there. So do you all have the authority to say, no, we're not going to respond to a crowd control? Why couldn't CHP do their own crowd control? Why did they have to relieve y'all from security? Why couldn't they do their own security?
So,
Ma'am, please. Thank you.
Again, the timeline of events is the officers received the request for extra patrol. They went to the location to try and determine what was going on. And then there were steps that were starting to be taken to ensure that state and federal agencies took over that so that we weren't involved in that. We, irrespective of the nature of the gathering, whether it's a First Amendment protest on whatever issue it is, we go to these probably 2 or 3 a week, where we are there may not be, right up in it, but we're contacting the organizers, trying to speak to folks to determine what the intentions are. Are they going mobile? Are they taking over roadways? What kind of safety plan do we need to have in effect? And so we have a duty to provide public safety. And that's what those officers were trying to fulfill, to ensure that they were there to provide public safety for everyone. Now, once it became clear that the concern was about the crowd that was there in the building security, once those individuals from state and federal law enforcement were able to get there and take over that concern, our folks left because they've got calls to answer. They've got local matters to tend to. And that was, at that point, not a matter for them to continue to remain, and they didn't.
Thank you. My last question is for Director Deetsz. Director Deetsz, do we have any legal standing to sue the federal government over our constituents being disappeared?
No. We very likely do not. But again, I am meeting with DC immigration lawyers tomorrow to talk about all of our options. But this is where, and I should have said this before, if our hands are tied and we don't have the authority, there are other groups out there who do. ACLU, I've talked with them. I have been in conversations with Turk ever since Sunday about what they are doing. And there are ways individuals can support organizations who can bring lawsuits, because I suspect that there were multiple constitutional violations overnight, and those individuals should be represented, and I will be very surprised if there are not lawsuits filed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask all these questions. Thank you all for answering these questions. To be clear, y'all are not my enemy. My enemy is the people that came out and took people from my community. But when we have breakdowns in policies and procedures, or when we don't have policies and procedures in place, we cannot keep our community safe. So I know Council Lady Vogt talked about that community safety plan within the 30 days. I didn't hear a commitment. I heard a talk about a plan, but are we saying, yes, we are committed to a community safety plan within 30 days?
So what I committed to is meeting with Councilmember Vo to determine what it is that she has in mind. And certainly if there's something that we can produce within 30 days, I'm happy to do that. But I just need to have a little bit better understanding of what it is she is looking for. So yeah, I'm committed to working with her towards that goal.
Thank you. And I believe that when she talked about budget money for a community safety plan, my assumption is that she meant reallocating existing money and not additional money. So I'm speaking on her behalf to say I'm assuming that's what she meant. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Porterfield. Let's see, I'm going to go to, and I guess we've got so many people in the queue. I want to, and I'm very mindful of the time. I want to try to go through questions, as if you could limit your question to 1 or 2 max, so that way we can get through everybody. But the next person I will recognize is Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. And I will be as brief as possible. I just have a few questions, and then I have a list of things I want done. I have a lot of feelings about this, as I know a lot of you do in the back, and I appreciate that Ms. Flynn said, I know you have feelings, but let's talk about facts. So I want to ask a few questions. Director Martini, do our operators always share as much information as the 911 dispatcher did? For instance, if I called in, not saying I'm council member, but if I just called in and said, my name's Emily, where are the police going to be tomorrow? If I were asked those types of questions, or I need police here, oh, who's on A detail these days? Who's the, precinct commander? All those questions. Am I going to, as a general member of the public, be given the same information that the caller on this call was given?
You raise a really good point. The short answer is no. The longer answer is the number this person used to call is a dedicated number for Metro police officers to dial to connect with their radio dispatchers. It is not a public number. It is not for the public to call. It is intended for Metro police officers to call and reach their Metro police dispatchers.
Sneaky. Was the operator debriefed? And was HR or some other party with you or will be there? I know you're currently engaged with this body relative to reported leadership concerns. I'm not here to talk about that, but just to ensure that that is not a distraction, I'd recommend you engage with HR or legal in any activity with your employees as the result of this. So that would be my request to you.
Sure.
Director Deetz, how many lawsuits against the federal government do we have at the present time, and any related to immigration? I believe Councilmember Porterfield touched on that a little bit with you, but how many lawsuits do we have with the federal?
We have two, council member. One was over the green energy funding cuts, 2 grants there. The second lawsuit was over cuts to the health department. We are in federal court on the 21st of May for a preliminary injunction, and I'm pretty sure there will be a series of lawsuits filed.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Gilder, THP has a list of scheduled checkpoints on their website. Do you know if this nefarious dragnet was listed?
I'm not aware of THP. Are you talking about the operation that occurred over this past weekend, whether it was listed on their website? Not to my knowledge, but
They have a checkpoint list on their website, so I would encourage the public to take a look at that. If we're not working on that, let's take a look at that and make sure that we know where they're going to be in our city. And then Deputy Chief Gilder, you're having to act above your pay grade tonight, and I'm not talking about your capabilities. I'm very disappointed that the Chief of Police isn't here. It's terrible leadership, and he shouldn't have put you in this position. And it's a real-time illustration of the frustration for the lack of accountability that we need from one of the most important departments in the city. I'd like to remind the chief that the people of this city pay your salary, and you must do more to publicly answer to us and to them.
May I say something? Again, I just want to reiterate that, the reason I am here tonight is because I serve as a council liaison. You know that you've seen me for every other week for years. And it was a special call council meeting. And so that's why I'm here, is in my role to help answer these questions. I facilitate questions from you all every other week every week about issues across the department. And that's what I'm trying to help do here tonight.
And I appreciate that.
And Chief Drake takes this situation very seriously. Every officer does as well, because we depend on our community partners to work with us. And this sows distrust and fear, and we recognize that. And that is a hard thing for us to deal with as well, because we care for this community. We're out there every day serving and protecting them, and they're important to us. And so this is an important issue for us.
Thank you for that. And again, this is nothing about your capabilities. This is about the level of accountability this city wants to see, that I want to see. And the Chief of Police, in my opinion, should have been here tonight. Chair, I have a few things that I want to be looked at and or do, so some specific actions. This is to the administration, the school board, and to Director Deetz relative to the schools. I know we have instructed all principals and reception to call Metro Legal if any federal enforcement tries to enter the building for any reason. But I'd like to get, we have 39 Metro Legal attorneys. I'd like to have at least one, I'd like to have a legal, we've worked remotely in the past. We know how to work remotely. I'd like to have a Metro Legal attorney in every one of our high schools and in every one of our schools, middle schools at least, in our majority minority neighborhoods. So I'd like you to look at that and see if you can't get that done. And that's the administration as well. Some parents are pulling, so this again goes to the school board probably and the administration. I know some parents are pulling their children out of school. We must provide homeschooling curriculum as well as resources for these children to continue their education safely. For charter schools, they are in metro buildings, I believe, exclusively, if not for the most part. I'd like our attorneys to go to those schools as well. If charter won't put policies in place, our legal staff can. Those are our buildings. To my colleagues, we must fund legal aid in the new budget. Let's make a big investment in the substitute for this. I call for $10 million directly out of the police budget to be reallocated to legal aid or to the public defender, or whatever legal resource that can directly work to protect our residents. Chief Drake, I'd like you to reallocate partners in care staff to majority minority areas of the city. We need to help our residents feel safe and be safe. To the administration, I'd like you to post an immigrant bill of rights in every metro building for the public and our employees. It should include the right to remain silent, to have legal representation, that they're not required to open the door to any law enforcement. And I'd like to have that done within 30 days, both for the public and for our own metro employees. And then to attorneys in the city, folks who are not here tonight, people, volunteers, folks who are willing to help, please contact the organizations that are involved. If you don't know who is involved, please contact me at emily.benedict@nashville.gov, and I will get you in touch with those organizations. This is an all-hands-on-deck moment. We need your support out in the public. Thank you for the public for coming out tonight. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Sam Benedict. We're going to go to Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me, even though I'm not a member of the committee. This is kind of shocking to hear what everybody's saying up here, and I want to say that I feel this many, many times, but tonight it is particularly galling to me that Chief Deputy Gilder is, Deputy Chief Gilder is here as the voice of truth when he has been credibly accused of trying to tank the Community Oversight Board. And so I don't think he has a lot of trust in the community. And so that you are being presented as the voice of truth is kind of undermining a lot of what is being said here tonight. Particularly when the notation, you're saying that MNPD didn't know about this, even though you all sent yourself a reminder from that ICE told you to send when they called DEC, and it just kind of, this all stretches the imagination that, or that no one, that a call to put out extra patrols doesn't say what they're for. Can anybody just say, I want an extra patrol? You just send yourself a thing and you don't have to, no one knows what it's for. I mean, it just seems, or nothing is said internally that just kind of begs a little bit of the truth. But my question really is, you know, what is happening here is not really the enforcement of immigration law as far as I'm concerned. It's rendition. And I think that when we see citizens being illegally arrested, I mean, ICE does have rules they have to follow. They are supposed to give even people who are here undocumented paperwork to allow them to challenge that, and they're not doing that. Why cannot MNPD intervene and stop these illegal arrests? ICE has absolutely no power to arrest anyone from MNPD. Why can they not put themselves in and intervene with something that we all know is illegal and unconstitutional?
It is a federal crime to interfere with any immigration enforcement action. It's a crime, and that's been on the books for decades. And again, MNPD is not part of immigration. They're not doing it. We will sue if the federal government tries to co-opt MNPD to make them enforcement officers, but they would be violating the law and risking criminal prosecution if they interfered with an ICE enforcement action.
But we were told these were just traffic stops.
That's an issue for the Tennessee Highway Patrol.
I think that we do have power, but I think we also have a lot of fear. And I think that we as a city need to get rid of our fear and start taking our power and not be fearful of losing federal money or anything else. We need to take a very strong, serious stand and realize we will make our way around no matter what they try to throw at us, because our obligation to our citizenry demands nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam Welsh. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Chair. So this has been a lot of new information about the situation to absorb and process, so I'm still working through a lot of that. But I did have a very specific question that I'd like to start with Director Martini. You know, you guys get a ton of calls, and you had this unusual call, and you're reviewing policy for how to handle an unusual call. Thinking through other calls that you might start getting if you're not already getting them is, you know, what if a Nashvilleian is in their home, in their church, in a business, and ICE is outside and they call 911? Like, what happens to that call? What do we do? Do we dispatch anyone? Do we have any resources that that person, to assist that person?
Yeah, your point is great, and I appreciate you bringing it up. If somebody calls and says, I don't feel safe and I want help, we will send that person help. It is not a, nope, sorry, that's ICE, good luck out there. We're going to send the request for help to the right field responder, and they will determine the right response process, right? Again, in this situation, once they were made aware, they went, and forgive me, buddy, if I'm speaking for you, but they were made aware, they checked it out, they handed it over to Tennessee Highway Patrol because they determined that was a better solution. But yes, please, if you feel unsafe, if there's a concern, always call us, and we will always send the right help to the right place when asked to do so. And that expands to fire, medical, mental health, the whole bit.
I guess, and this may not be a question for you, maybe it is, but do we have the best version of help that we could send someone who's being victimized by federal immigration enforcement? Like, do we have tools in the toolbox to address that call adequately?
You're right. I don't know that that's a question for me. We will send the resources that Metro Nashville has to whatever the call is, whatever makes sense. We coordinate our resource response with our responders, right? Same with fire, with medical. We just sit and determine what type of call are we sending and who from the department, what type of resource, how many resources, those types of things are to be sent on those individual calls. So let's coordinate it with our response partners. But to can talk about whether it's the right type of help, I think you look at programs like Partners in Care and REACH that say in recent years we've determined that the right type of help was not being sent on certain calls. So we made this body made the right decisions to help fund and innovate and expand programs to send more appropriate help to certain types of calls.
Thank you for that answer. And I guess to just kind of reiterate, if you would please take a look at what happens to that call today and make sure that with the resources that we have today, whoever's responding to that call is best equipped to respond to that call. As well, I think as a body, administration, Director Deetz, if we can explore, do we need an additional kind of help that we can send? Do we need to expand that toolkit within the bounds of the law to do whatever we can to support Nashvillians that find themselves in such situations? That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker. We still have quite a few people in the queue, so I would like really, if you could limit it to one question, and then we're going to move on. So, because I think we're starting to shift a little bit and get repetitive. So if we could get Councilmember Ewing, and then we'll have Councilmember Bradford. Councilmember Ewing, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, like a lot of my questions were taken up. I just want to make a comment, and then I have a question for Director Deetz. I think part of the problem here is that we're normalizing what shouldn't be normalized. We're normalizing something that is very much not normal. We are living in absolutely bizarre times and dangerous times, and we need to stop acting like a call for MNPD backup for an ICE operation is a normal thing. So that's the statement. And then I wanted to ask Director Deetz with regard to making a case for Metro against the federal level. It seems to me that a lot of language was being thrown around that's not entirely accurate. So they were calling this an operation. They were calling it enforcement. They were calling it traffic stops. They were calling it public safety. When really what they were doing was going on a giant fishing expedition to see if they came up with someone that they could then deport. So that is misrepresentation. I'm not a lawyer, I admit that. But it seems like there should be some recourse for us when the federal government is asking us for backup at the local level when they are feeding us a big line of garbage. It's everything that they said. They changed their story. They gave us language that was false. And is there anything in there that we can use?
Council member, it is not lost on any of us that the call came in for extra patrols related to something that they had total control over, which was how to conduct that operation or not conduct it at all. The irony leaps off the page. That said, it's very difficult for us to challenge. We will sue if they try to commandeer our police force. We will oppose that with everything we've got, and we will very likely win a lawsuit over that. But the ability to tell ICE that they cannot do something, we just don't have it. And the Highway Patrol needs to answer these questions about what they were doing, because it's clear that to the extent it was a traffic stop, a traffic safety issue, it was immediately converted into an immigration detention issue. And so those questions need to be addressed at the state level.
Follow up, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to, losing my train of thought. Okay, so it sort of goes back to CM Vo's desire and mandate to have a community safety plan. I think that we need to start thinking outside of the box and realizing that this is not a normal situation, that they never meant it as traffic stops. They meant it as an intimidation exercise and an exercise in deportation of our citizens. And so that being the case, we need to come up with that community safety plan, which will involve having other parties out in the community partner with Metro, because none of us can do this alone. And I'll stop now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ewing. Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask a few questions, but I'm not going to expect answers on all of them. But I want to put them on the record and hope that you will, send us emails with your answers. But I also want to stand up and say, most people kind of recognize over my term on council, I've been very consistent when it comes to public safety. But what we saw this weekend was not public safety. What we saw was state-sponsored terrorism. What we saw this weekend is what many of these individuals fled their home countries to get away from. And so we do not need to be complicit. We need to be outraged. We need to do everything we can to let it be known that you cannot come into our city and take our people. I also want to thank Director Deetsz. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your name right now.
Martini.
Martini, I should have known. For being here as leaders of your department, putting aside other things that you were supposed to do tonight to come answer questions. I'm very disappointed that Chief Drake decided it was not worth his time to be here. Of course, we've seen evidence over the last few weeks that Chief Drake doesn't really have a lot of respect for the taxpayers. And so I'm not surprised that he chose to be here, not to be here. He probably had a hot date with a Metro employee.
Councilmember Bradford,
so here's my question.
Yes, let's get to the question, please.
The question that I would like for Director Deetsz to research. Under the new state laws that were passed regarding immigration and the arresting of city employees, elected officials, et cetera, what actions can we take here in Nashville to fight back? Can we get, in regards to whether or not MNPD was or was not involved in this situation or any others, I would like a third-party independent investigation into those actions and not an internal MNPD investigation. And Mr. Martini, my day job is in quality and compliance. As it was brought up, on January 17th of 2024, we had an executive order issued by the mayor requiring that all Metro agencies be in compliance with that executive order within 3 days. As of today, it's been 473 days and you're not in compliance. In my day job and what I do, you would be terminated because you are the director of this division and you are knowingly out of compliance. So what are you going to do to get your department in compliance?
Specifically, you're right. Missed it. Don't have a policy. We are putting that in place now. Took action yesterday to speak to the automation and the keyword notifications. We have a process that's those are two steps. It's not done. There's more we believe we can do. And like I said, we're engaging with the mayor's office and legal to understand that breadth. But you're right. That was my oversight.
Thank you, Director Martini. Thank you, Councilmember Bradford. Councilmember Gadd?
Just wait for, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for making sure that, that we're gathered here today, and also that my colleagues in the Immigrant Caucus were prioritized as they are personally representing the communities that they live in and they're a part of. I think it has been absolutely shameful to know and to hear the phone call. I think it's still raw and processing that as we continue to learn additional information through colleagues' questions and the answers that May 1st was the phone call. People on the ground have been saying that they had been sharing information, and that's the reason we are here today. So thank you to folks in the community. Thank you for being here. For those that have had to already leave to go to probably tend to family and other matters, and if you're listening, thank you. I will, Madam Chair, I'll try to abide exactly what you asked, which is to keep this short for those of us remaining in the queue. I will try to do my best to go to one question, but I just have to highlight, with your indulgence, just a couple of things. I'll try to move quickly. Regarding a community safety plan, I don't know if we understand the difference between community safety plan and public safety plan. And I think if we could do a follow-up with that with Councilmember Vo, there is a difference. Metro Human Relations Commission has been here. We've all heard it through from other contracts that we have requested to have more input on a community safety plan. And so as we move that, I think we have partners and departments that are willing to participate in that. And so I would highlight that. Under Executive Order 30, our colleagues have already lifted up, not only with the administration, sounds like there's a lot of work to do. There's already been identified with noncompliance, and fortunately, there's commitment to right that. But we'll have to have that in writing, and hoping that the administration also provides this and every SOP through all the departments that's going to be engaging. That'll be a little bit of work, but it's going to be worth it, because everything we've heard today, that we don't know the Executive Order 30 is actually in compliance. It sounds like we actually do have some authority for MNPD at this point to protect our streets that we actually own. For those pikes, I know a colleague, Councilmember Sepulveda, has been requesting that the NDOT and the city actually obtain control of Nolensville Pike. So thank you for your continued foresight to protect our communities, and that sounds like at least that would have been one measure that we would have actually had the ability to have some control on our streets. Sounds like we're still not getting, according to Law Director, compliance on where our people are. FOIA requests, whatever we have to do, I hope that's done tonight. And we have follow-up here in the next 48 hours as our families are missing. There's an additional specific request I want to make. As we know, the Tennessee General Assembly passed and Governor Bill Lee signed, and we actually, as a Metro government, have hired Metro lobbyists that are on our behalf, that are former employees of Governor Lee. So hopefully they can work their influence to get the responses from the Tennessee Highway Patrol, that we are actually, the reason I assume we're paying for their relationships is that they will help us with this administration. So hopefully those folks could be called. The former Director of Legislative Affairs, who's paid by Metro government, and some other employees that are currently paid by Metro to be lobbyists. Maybe those phone calls could be made by the mayor's office to ask the administration to actually have the Highway Patrol, and other members of state government that may have information to share that with us. But the Tennessee General Assembly passed and Governor Lee signed Public Chapter 1, parts of which took place January 30th of this year. Pursuant to Section 2 of that act, the Commissioner of Safety, in consultation with the Chief Immigration Enforcement Officer, shall attempt to enter into terms of agreement between the state of Tennessee, the United States Attorney General concerning the enforcement of federal immigration laws, detention and removals, and investigation in this state under 287G program pursuant to the Immigration Nationality Act. According to news releases from the state of Tennessee, the state's chief enforcement officer was hired 3 weeks ago on April 18th. There is, however, no reference made to the Chief Immigration Enforcement Officer on the Department of Safety and Homeland Security's website. Did any such agreement, as described in this Public Chapter 1, exist prior to the detention and arrests on May 3rd and 4th? And has any copy of any such agreement been provided to the Metro government? And that, I think, may be to either the administration or Director Deetsz. So the question is there any, do we have any copy of that agreement? Has that agreement actually, that was described in Public Chapter 1 that I just illuminated, did that exist prior to the detentions or the arrests that were on May 3rd and 4th? And do we have any copy of those agreements? I'm just curious.
Council member, I don't know, but I will look into it and get you an answer.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think one incredibly alarming thing, not to me, but I think others, that is that have spoken in the community or just hearing the call is hearing our officers being called by name who may be in the department for contacts. And I'd probably have to replay that call. So I don't know if the caller from, which I believe, if I recall, was from the state Homeland Security, but in referencing trying to get, so if you'll refresh my memory, just, I know we heard the call, what's probably now been 2 hours ago, so thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence. But there was a reference, it kept asking for different names of different folks in the department. So I'd like a little bit of illumination on that. And if you can hold that, I'm gonna go ahead and complete this second aspect of that. And maybe I should let you reply first, but the second part is understanding, so any of those personal references, I'd love some clarification on that. And maybe I'll just stop there and see if you have some, since you were leaning in. And now, Madam Chair, are you okay with that? And I'll ask one and stop.
Yes.
Sure. So my understanding, and it's based solely on having listened to the call a couple of times, is that this individual who works for the Federal Protective Service, what he states in there is that he used to be a Metro police officer and he worked in the North Precinct. And it sounded to me like he's trying to gauge, like, does he know anybody that is working in this area? And he is asking the dispatcher, well, does so-and-so still work there? Does so-and-so still work there? I'm not familiar with this officer or former officer, but again, that's my assessment of it based on having listened to the call that came in.
Thank you. That is, thank you for sharing that. I'll just say that. I'll say that given our failure to report this May 1st call in a timely manner, I do think it's worth asking, are we aware of any other incoming operations? Have we had any other calls? Have there been anything else? I think that is fair to ask at this point. And verbally, I would love to hear.
Yes, we have checked, obviously, since May 1st through the weekend, and we've put those automations in place now to catch those going forward. We know it works. We've received several notifications. We even actually were triggered to kind of a repeating process that, yes, we're very aware that it works now, and no, we're not aware of any additional notifications. I'll echo Deputy Chief Gilder earlier. It is rare that we get a notification from ICE that they're going to do anything, much less specifically where, what scale.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been shared. Thank you so much. Madam Chair, I know I said one more. Would you give me one more indulgence, or am I out of indulgence?
Can we get you at the end if we see how, we got 3 people left.
yes,
Can
ma'am.
I come
Yes,
back to you if they're expedient?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Okay, sure thing. Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. Lot that I'm not going to say, but I want to first put on the radar for my colleagues that are still here and those that are going back to watch the clip. We received an email titled Abuse 911 Workers on February the 4th, 2025. And in that email, they asked for a training, amongst other things they made us aware of. My question is for Director Deetz. For those at home that did not feel safe coming out today, what guidance has Metro government given to MNPD and MNPS? When ICE shows up, what are they to do?
The guidance we have given MNPS is that they should call our office immediately. And I believe that request has been heard. And we're seeing evidence that it's been adopted at the school system. So we want lawyers involved immediately to go to the scene. And I would love if Councilmember Benedict wants to sponsor lawyers, for us to have lawyers at every school 24/7. I would love to do that. But seriously, we are very active with schools in terms of call us immediately. We've told every Metro department the same thing, call us immediately, and that they should not engage and wait for us to arrive.
So am I to understand on behalf of the parents in my community that have children with brown skin, that they're safe, or it's safe to send their children to school?
It is disgraceful that the Trump administration revoked the safety zone executive order that had been in place that protected schools, churches, healthcare centers, and they were essentially off limits to ICE. That is no longer the law. And that's 100% a decision that President Trump has made.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellis. Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you very much, Chair. So 2 nights ago, I had ICE in my district. 2 vehicles were found left running, abandoned by the side of the road. I'm getting messages. People are terrified. We all know that this is a horrific situation, and it's only bound to get worse when this law goes into effect in July. But I had a question from one of my constituents asking about if she gets pulled over and someone is in the car with her that doesn't have identification, are they going to ask that person for identification? Is she going to get in trouble? What happens in those circumstances? Has anyone reached out to find out what THP, what ICE is doing when they're conducting these stops? I know we have a few videos, but those aren't covering all of the incidences and situations that are popping up. Anyone?
I can't speak to THP's operation and how they would react to that. What I can tell you is that, when MNPD conducts traffic stops, the engagement is typically with the driver unless there's some reasonable suspicion with respect to passengers. We would obviously try and identify the people that we're dealing with. But again, I can't speak to how the THP operates.
So I don't want you to speak to their operation. What I'd like to know is, has anyone reached out to them and kind of asked a couple of questions? Since we're 2 law enforcement agencies, and we've got all these issues happening in the last few days. Has there been any due diligence to find anything out? I know we are on the defensive right now.
Council member, I'm aware of the letter I sent to THP. I've gotten an interim response that's not complete. I'm expecting additional documents, arrest records, and what have you on that. I also know, and I made mention before, the Davidson County delegation sent a 3-page letter, and they got a response today that I view as unsatisfactory. And I expect that they will follow up. I think it's probably the most appropriate avenue is for our state legislators to be asking these questions of THP because it's a state level function. I would not, frankly, expect THP to answer. If I asked that question on your behalf, I'd be very surprised if I got an answer. That doesn't mean I won't do it now, but I think the pressure point with THP is with state officials.
And I appreciate that. I would like us to ask, whatever their response is, but it's one more measure for us doing our own due diligence. I would appreciate that.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stiles. Councilmember Coopin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for everyone who's came out tonight and spoke, and thank you for y'all for being here as well. Just got a couple quick things. First of all, I share my colleague's concern that we had a call on May 1st that mentioned these operations. We need to know what's going on our streets. We need to know what's going on in our city, and the fact that we didn't, to me, is an oversight, and I'm glad that we're working to correct it. We're taking steps to fix that, but it's very concerning to me that there were potentially hundreds of arrests and stops going on, and we had no idea. And there was a call that came in, and we had no idea. So I recognize that there are process and challenges, but I'm glad we're going to fix that in the future. A question for Director Deetsz, if I can. You mentioned the kind of FOIA public records request for the folks that have been detained. Why not put that in now as we're waiting to try to take the pathway of sending letters and going through the appropriate channels? Why not start that process, which, as we know, takes time, to have them running kind of simultaneously?
Council member, great question. If you look at my letter that was attached to my statement, one of the email addresses I used for ICE was their FOIA address. So that request went into them this afternoon.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And then just a second and last question. We've heard concerns about constitutionality and due process and things like that, which obviously are the foundation of our democracy. What can Metro do to protect due process and constitutionality and make sure that folks know their rights, understand their rights, and are able to exercise their rights in our city?
I think assisting organizations that are on the front line here is something Metro can do. I think there are organizations already in the Metro budget, including legal aid, who are on the front line, who can provide civil representation. There are other organizations that are involved in helping connect immigration lawyers and criminal defense lawyers when necessary. So making sure that people know their rights, and then supporting organizations who do have the ability to provide direct representation is something the Metro government can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Coopin. We don't have any more questions in the queue. Councilmember Gadd, I'm going to go back to you. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I didn't see either one of you. Councilmember Gadd, we're going to forego your question if that's okay. And we'll get Councilmember Cash and then Nash, and then that's going to be the end of the questions.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be really quick. I appreciate everybody's time, and we've been here a while. I want to go back to what Councilmember Vo and others have chimed in on, a plan. We've learned a lot tonight. We've learned, I think, that we need to do better in some areas for sure. And I guess I just want to, there was an exchange that it seemed like Deputy Chief Gilder was going to meet with Councilmember Vo and talk through what she was talking about. I mean, I think we're looking at something that needs to be like a coordinated Metro government plan. And I, at this point, just want to ask the mayor's office, do you see that that's the case, that we need to come together quickly with a plan to address some of the things that have gone on? And who might be in the mayor's office, who might be the contact person to help coordinate these different departments and make sure that we quickly make some changes to do better?
Thanks, Councilmember. I think that we need to do everything that we can within the law to be supportive here. And that one of the main things that the mayor's office has been doing is collecting and disseminating information and trying to be a place of coordination as their efforts to create chaos and sow division by the actions that have been taking place in our city. So yeah, I mean, anything that we can do to help convene people, bring people together and create a much greater sense of community safety than there is now, we're fully on board with.
Sounds good. And just real quickly, I think one of the key things is follow through and accountability that you let the mayor's office is uniquely qualified to do. Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that just to add, like, could that be a discussion that is like a formalized, body group, whatever, that is public? And I'm just thinking about, now having been in the seat for 3 years, how many starts and stops we have seen across, like, it being under health. Like, now we'll have a new hire under, for the Office of Youth Safety. We lost like that public safety, community safety role, under the prior administration. Like, I just think there needs to be something formalized, coordinated, and probably bigger to be able to execute like what I think Councilmember Vo is talking about, and not like we're making a plan because we got to make a plan really fast. So I think there's components of that, but I feel like we've had so many fits and starts or stops and starts along the way that, if we can put some energy around it,
Thank you, Madam Chair. On one front, there's a position in the budget for a director of violence prevention in the mayor's office, which speaks to part of it. Otherwise, I'm sure our office is open to talking about the best way to structure what you're talking about. I don't think I'm the person to make that call at this moment.
I understand. Okay, that was on my mind. Thank you, Councilmember Cash. Councilmember Nash. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Testing. Just a couple of quick observations. I remember having a conversation with Chief Kirshner one time, and he said, I have 1,000 officers out there working for me, and every night I go home and I know somebody's making a mistake. And that's exactly what happened, why nobody in this room knew about that phone call, because one dispatcher just didn't make the connection. And I don't want to throw her under the bus. There's obviously some training that needs to be done, and we've heard that's going to be done. The second thing is, I spent 33 years on this police department. And during that time, I made a few arrests. And every time I had made an arrest, we had to go down before a magistrate, where the person had a chance to offer at least some defense, or I had to show that I had a case to be made. And then they would go to jail, they'd get their phone call, they'd get a chance to go to court and really defend themselves. Nobody got disappeared by a Metro police officer. And I find this arresting people and hauling them off immediately somewhere with no contact with anybody deplorable. And I hope that ICE and THP will modify their techniques and their strategies. And then thirdly, this was an ICE operation, a THP operation, and boy, we've been holding Metro highly accountable. I wonder if it might be worth our time to really ask the questions of the people that were involved in this. And I would like to ask the chairman if she would offer up a chance for ICE and THP to come meet with us so we can ask those questions of the folks that really, now they may turn you down, but I think we need to have an offer and let this community and this council address the people that are really responsible for this action.
Absolutely. I'd be more than willing to extend an invitation and see what feedback I get. So thank you for making that suggestion. Having no other questions, Councilmember Gadd, I appreciate you foregoing your last thought. I'll just say that as far as the end of the meeting, or actually before I end, is there anybody still here from the remix? Or are they gone? Okay, got it. Okay. So I know there is a fund where they are collecting money to be able to support families in the community that are impacted by this. The Community Foundation also has a fund that's been established for donations. And so we will all make sure that we share kind of those respective funds, with our constituents in the community. So just wanted to make that offer to everybody. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is we've had a lot of really good conversation and takeaways and opportunities, I think, to improve, and also ideas for future action. And so on Tuesday, June 30th at the Public Health and Safety Committee, we'll have a little progress report on all these requests kind of across different council members and kind of where we stand after having more of an opportunity to digest all this information and kind of getting the consultation back from our department leadership. And so just wanted to put that out there as well, so that way we have a place to kind of bookend all this information that we've been discussing. And so with that, seeing no objection, because most of the room is left, we'll go ahead and call us adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.